Hello everybody and welcome to the Blitz tournament that will determine who gets 5 whites, who gets 5 blacks. In arguably the strongest tournament of the year 2017 Norway Chess. I'm Gustafsson. I'm delighted to be joined with one of the strongest players not playing in that tournament. I don't speak English, but hi Peter Svidler.
Yeah, neither of us speaks English, but that's all fine. You know what to expect from this show, and yeah, this should be 2 hours of tremendous fun. We probably will be able to only stick to one game to the finish per round, but we will try to update you on the tournament situation. As Jan mentioned, it's all fun and games to some degree, but getting 5 whites in a tournament of this strength is no laughing matter. So I'm pretty sure they are taking it reasonably seriously. And in round 1, we have a treat for you already. One of the biggest and most talked about rivalries in modern chess, I think. Magnus is white against Hikaru Nakamura.
In order to make it a rivalry, don't you have to win some?
He won 1 already, I think, right? Has he?
I'm not sure. That could very well be true. Let's see. We even have some cameras here. And I might, with some luck, be able to find it. There we have Magnus. Bit shorter hair. Openings as trolley as ever. One knight c3. d5, d4.
Yeah, bringing it back to the sort of familiar-ish these days London/Verisov territory. You've recorded something on the subject recently, haven't you?
Yeah, the main thing not to blunder here is any sort of knight b5 trick. That really is the main thing you need to know about the Verisov. If you don't allow that, you're in good shape. And Hikaru stopped it with a6.
Yeah, and the game has progressed somewhat further, so this being Blitz, I don't think there's much point in us discussing the finer points of the Verisov, in particular the Verisov with bishop f4, which I think is mild even by Verisov standards, but...
Are you calling it very soft?
I wasn't, but I am now, obviously. And yeah, I think Magnus generally should be happy enough with a position like this. He might even objectively have a little bit of a pull here, but also only one pair of bishops got traded off, and there's a lot of play left. And
Rook c8, very deep move. I don't get it, but I think he removed his knight next move, which is what I was going to suggest. h3, knight fd7.
Yeah, and bishop g3. Without the rook on c8, bishop takes c7, e d5, knight d5, queen d5 would have won a pawn. I'm not sure Magnus would have even gone for that because it leaves him with a really ruined structure in the center. But it would have been an option. With the rook on c8, it's no longer really very attractive, and the bishop went to g3, rook e8. Black's position is extremely solid. There are no weaknesses. It's a very decent pawn structure, but it's not easy for Black to do much, in terms of constructive improvement. Maybe in some cases he might go for c6, c5 breaks if they are sufficiently prepared. But that's about the only active plan you can think of. The knight on b6 is really not a very attractive piece here.
I think it was Tartakova who once said knight on b6 is always misplaced, and it was some other dude who said knights that defend each other normally aren't well placed. So Black has 2 of the rules going against him here.
Yeah, and
he's working on it.
Yeah, knight f6 allows before, but rook e8 blitzed out. Well, blitzed out is not really something I should be saying very much because most of these moves will be blitzed out, this being a blitz tournament. But Hikaru immediately spotting that there is now counterplay available to him in the shape of a6, a5, or at least potentially, because he declined to do it straight away, a5, b5, favoring white. And instead he went knight h5, knight f6, sort of passing the move to white and saying, okay, show me where your constructive feedback is.
Be more constructive with your feedback.
Yeah, queen e7 once again hinting at a5. Magnus played knight g2. You have to check a5, but I guess right now ba5.
Take it.
Yeah, the knight will be hanging and it has no useful squares. And if this knight actually gets transferred from f3 to c5, White will be a lot happier about his situation. Yeah. That will be the one really good piece you can base your play around.
So Magnus.
I'm starting to like this for White.
Magnus hasn't won a classical chess tournament since Bilbao 2016. Is it too early for writing him off? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is now very nice for white, obviously. Rook a7 is an incredibly unattractive move, but maybe the only move black had in that position to even protect the b7 pawn. And now Magnus has the option of playing I'm not sure about knight takes c5, but maybe Hikaru felt he was by now obliged to do it. And white might have to play... No, but d4 is just very decent here. I think d4 followed by b5.
He's fighting against b5 by going b6. Might still work, but
Yeah, in
you
some
have to
positions,
calculate.
in some positions it might still work, but here in particular, I think it probably leads to complete simplification in the center. But he does go for it. That's interesting because after everything comes off, b takes c5, b takes c6, rook takes c6, I don't think you are left with a lot. You can still play on, but it doesn't look horrific for black.
No, but black still has to coordinate his pieces. He's like,
Sure, but something like even maybe rook a6 might not be completely horrible. Or you could go rook e6 or rook, he went rook g6 with the same idea, unpinning the c5 pawn just to try and completely eliminate everything on the queen side. 3 against 3, even with awkward pieces, will be very difficult to win for white.
Sounds like topic of a book I'm working on, drawing by unpinning. Queen b5, rook a5.
Yeah, I guess he saw some tactical issues, but now the rook on a5 will come under pressure. Bishop c7 is a threat. I'm not sure I like bishop. I like rook a5. It's becoming a bit awkward. The queen on d8 is also not great. Although bishop c7, you can play queen g5 here for black.
This looks very scary.
Yeah, knight f4 might be very... No, knight for queen rook b6, yeah.
Potentially.
Queen g5, knight f4 though. I think this is what Magnus is planning.
That's the idea.
Yeah, and I think...
Queen a8 has been played.
Yeah, Hikaru spotted this, and queen a8 is a clever move because it more or less forces white to trade. But yeah, with the knight e7 check, black did end up losing the c pawn. And this will not be an easy draw, although...
He's trying to exchange the bishop, probably.
Yeah, I think the 4-rook endgame is probably his best shot, but it's... With the rook on c1, yeah, this might not be easy to hold at all. Maybe knight b4 is a better shot here. Try to establish some kind of a blockade.
I went rook c6.
Yeah, that's not
better version.
Yeah, that's a much better version. And I'm surprised by how fast Magnus went for this, because I think this might just be a draw now.
King d6.
Just king d6 followed by.
He's fishing. But
yeah, he's trying to create weaknesses on the king side, but just king e7 here and then return to d6. Although now pawn endings might be lost, like king g3 here. Yeah, Magnus immediately spots the difference between the previous position and this. f5, h4 here, I think you can take.
No, takes. I can't calculate. Takes.
No,
takes,
f4 probably wins, yeah. F4 actually...
I was wondering, yeah.
I think f4 kind of wins. But maybe by this point there was already not a lot of choice for black. Takes f4, I think g4 loses. But hang on, no, maybe you can run towards the g3 pawn. King h4, king g5, king g5, king e4, g3, king f3. That probably is a draw.
These guys calculate quite quickly.
Yeah, but also black has absolutely no choice. So
sure.
The whole line comes at a lightning pace because it's just completely forced. So from a certain point on, I think a very well played game, and Hikaru defended what at some point looked a horribly unpleasant position successfully.
And holding any worse endgame against Magnus is not an easy feat. So good job, Hikaru.
Not the easiest pairing in the world, I guess, for both of them for round one, and a well-played game. In other results, we see that this is the final position in MVL against Kramnik, and MVL won with white. So he is the early frontrunner potentially. Sergei Karekin has beaten Karana with white. And there's a ton of decisive games. Apart from the game we
Come
covered.
on, Fabi. Rook g4?
Well, the position already is completely lost. You have a feeling, and rook g4, you know, if it works, is the only chance black has to at least spoil the white structure. But yeah,
lose the rook.
Loses the rook. There is a tactical drawback, and Lev gave mate on.
Oh, I've seen this trick.
Yeah, Lev gave mate on the board to Wesley in some kind of a theoretical Queen's Gambit decline battle, seemingly from what I can see from the opening. And we're missing one more game, I think.
So half out of 3 for the Americans, scored by Hikaru with black against Magnus.
Yeah, interesting. And Anand Giri looks like Vishy was pressing with an extra pawn, but bishops generally hold these positions quite comfortably. And
By pressing, you mean he agreed to draw instantly?
not instantly. I think they've been playing this endgame for a while.
This looks like a marshal gone slightly wrong, but not wrong enough to lose, right?
Yeah.
You move around.
Yeah, I think in this position in particular, if the knight goes somewhere, bishop f1 is just tremendously unpleasant. So, yeah, there's just not a lot white can do. So not a premature decision by Vishy to repeat. So we have 2 games drawn and 3 early leaders: Sergei Karyakin, Lev Aronian, and Maxime on 1 out of 1. And we probably have pairings for round 2 somewhere, but
We do? I would not bet on that.
I think they're up on the website. It's just that we can't possibly access the website as fast as some of you out there watching can.
Yeah, they will play more games in round number 2. Total, they will play 9 games. It's like the real thing, just with 3 minutes plus 2 seconds increment instead of 100 minutes plus no increment, which they will have in the tournament.
Yeah, and there were already some complaints about that. It's not that this time control has never been seen before, but I've seen some outrage posts on Facebook saying that if there is increment, it should start at move 1. So, outrage is popular.
Outrage is popular?
Outrage is very popular these days, yeah.
Who does these things?
Who doesn't?
I'm too lazy to get outraged or to get the correct URL, but I'm working on it. Can you tell I'm working on stuff?
Well, I can, but the viewers can't.
I think they will see the anxious look on my face, trying to copy-paste things, and then trying to guess that after 1 comes 2. Boom!
Okay, so the pairings for round 2 are Magnus is black against Vishy. Kramnik is playing his 2nd game with black against Anish. Not an ideal start for Vladimir, who would probably want a somewhat milder entrance into this. And I think he is one of the people, not that his black repertoire is poor, but I think he would really like 5 whites in this event. Hikaru is white against Levon. Wesley is white against Sergei, and there's one more game somewhere. Yeah, Fabi plays white against MBL.
Which game do we go with? Vishy Magnus? I think we gotta.
Yeah, probably.
Magnus still has the world champion bonus, and Vishy has the former world champion bonus, which can't be topped by any other pairing. Even though Kramnik has the former world champion bonus too, and Giri has the
All kinds of bonuses.
most
Especially-
popular on the internet bonus.
Yeah, arguably the more important bonus of all.
Most.
The most important bonus of all, yeah. As we warned you in advance, we can't speak English.
No, but we have a bunch of videos here. It does look like, oh, Vladi's already sitting down. What's your habit? You probably walk around till the very last minute, right?
Yeah, I don't like sitting at an empty board in particular. And what I am hoping for this event is a lack of a break in the middle. But I think, judging by how they did things last year when we were commentating on site, I think there might be like a half an hour break between rounds 5 and 6 potentially, which I think is to no one's benefit.
I vaguely recall that, but normally people protest, and rightly so, whenever there's a break, especially in a short Blitz tournament. It throws you off your game completely. You can eat something which is bad, you cannot eat something which is bad, you can nap which is bad.
Yeah, you can have a shot of cognac, which is what I think Eric Lobron used to advocate, but I'm not sure in this tournament there's probably not that many people who follow this school of thought. Last year I think Li Chao scored 0 out of 4 after the break. He was one of the leaders going into the break, looked poised to have the 5 whites to finish in the top half easily. Was, well, not cruising, but I think he was maybe even on +2, definitely on +1. And then just lost every single game after his rhythm was broken.
Yeah, after the break he had to say ciao to his lead.
Very nice.
Thought about it for a while, but I'm not that happy.
Very nice. And yeah, I think if you poll the players, there will be no one in favor of breaks in 9-round Blitz tournaments. If it's something like the World Blitz Championship, or I don't know, what used to pass for a World Blitz Championship, I think in the olden days the Tal Memorial Blitz used to be the summit before they started holding the annual championships. Those were 19 or occasionally they invited people, so that would be like a 22-round Blitz tournament. Then of course you have to have breaks because otherwise you would just die. Yeah. But in a 9-round tournament, there's really no call for a break.
Thanks, Tony Rowe. Much appreciated. I keep half an eye on the chat, but you guys will understand that with the fast pace that these events have, it's very hard to stick with it. We'll have a lot of time to hang out during the regular event. But thanks for talking to us.
There's a question from KGA. Is Coffee chess related? Not necessarily, but there is chess-related coffee, which is what you're watching right now, for instance.
I'm drinking... No, I don't have any coffee material. I'm drinking my coffee out of my chess-related mug. But I don't think coffee meant coffee. I think it meant coverage.
This is what I was, going for. Perhaps that horse has already been beaten to its natural conclusion, so maybe we should stop.
Can you beat a horse to its natural conclusion?
Not necessarily, no. You can.
You probably can. The question is if it's still a natural conclusion, even if it's forced by unnatural means, like beating the horse.
Yeah, that's a good point. It didn't really sound right.
Magnus, what's with Magnus's style? He got a haircut, right?
Yeah, he's still going for this like nerdy hammer look. I think people were very seriously suggesting that this hairstyle was inspired by his undying admiration for Jan
Ludwig. You think he went to such extents to troll Jan Ludwig as to radically alter his look?
It was a suggestion. I don't know how true that is.
And he's playing another trollish line.
Yeah,
this is the Kuprejcik?
Yeah, I think it's the Kuprejcik.
It's like a worse version of the Naidov, right?
Sort of, yeah. And also, I think both of them were Belarusian, both Verisov and Kuprejcik. Kuprejcik definitely, but Verisov, I think, as well, is a Belarusian chess player. So maybe there is a Belarusian theme to what Magnus is doing.
Has he been working with
the Zhigalko brothers?
Yeah, I was thinking, which is the stronger Zhigalko? Sergei is the stronger one, right?
I think
so.
Because
I keep getting it wrong. Apologies to the Zhigalko family. Because I have lost to both of them, I believe.
Things happen. And this actually now is a direct transposition to the Naidov.
Right, because you go a6.
Yeah, because a5 is now played in one move. Bishop e6 is played in two, but a5 is played in one move. So this is directly...
Can we show people that? Will you manage?
Sure. a6, f3, e5, or bishop e3, knight b3, bishop e6.
Don't confuse me. Just tell me the moves.
Yeah, bishop e3, bishop e7, queen d2. They normally castle here, so it's a slightly different position. They normally play a5 here, not on a previous move, but it's a similar position. Well, this will not happen because Vichy has the option of not castling queenside, and he's taken that option. I'm a bit curious though. If I take and go knight b4, white has to go c4, and if black manages to trade off the dark square bishops in these structures, black is just generally sort of already fighting for advantage. So I'm not entirely sure just how much I like what Vishy is doing. Like
Magnus surprised. Takes with the bishop?
Yeah, I would start by takes knight b4, which I think forces c4. You don't want to give up this central pawn for none. I mean, in some lines you do, but not here, I think. So white goes c4 and knight d7. I can't get... It might be a problem to play knight d7, b6 and knight c5, because after b6 white might take on d7 and on b6. But I would still start with knight d7, followed maybe by f5. But if black does manage to place the knight on c5 after playing b6, I just pick black. It's much easier to play with black. The bishop on b5 looks fantastic, but it does not a lot.
Also looks like he's trapped outside of his own pawn chain, which is probably better than being trapped inside, but he still can't get back.
Yeah, Magnus starts with b6. Vichy castled, and now there's this issue that you need to calculate whether.
Bit.
Yeah, he decided not to calculate if you don't have to, and that makes perfect sense. Generally, White's only source of play is something connected with the f4 break. Fabi in these structures famously goes g4, but I think that it's very, very important to have the bishop somewhere around e2 or c2 squares for that to work, because you need to control the counterplay on the king side.
Also, Fabi has like 0 out of 1,000 against the knight off, so maybe he's not the man to follow.
Not in this. No, I think in these structures his record is very, very good. I think he was the first one who showed this idea existed, and I think he has very decent results with it. And people have started taking this up as well, so it's.
He also mentioned last time, brought this up to him, that it's not true. He's won his last 6 or 7 games, but he used to have a very bad score against the knight off. What's going on here? Egalite? Is White better? I don't understand.
Well, I think, once again, this is not the usual structure, because usually Black is forced to take with the d-pawn. And there White generally, these days, wins some of those games. In particular, I think Jan Nepomniachtchi won a very nice game against Boris Gelfand in Zurich. A very instructive game where he continued piling on pressure on both sides. But with the pawn chain as solid as this is, you just need to pay attention to bishop takes b4, c takes b4, c5. That's the only break White has.
He's just indicated he's not planning to do it instantly.
Not instantly, yes. So you would probably go something like rook c8 and then start aiming for f5, bishop f6, or the immediate f5.
Can you do it now?
Well, you can definitely consider doing it now, and I would be interested, because I think
bishop king h1.
Yeah, bishop play king h1, but well, I mean, if Black starts actually expanding on the king side, you're not going to like it very much. In particular, with the bishop on b5 completely dead. Yeah, and after bishop f6, I'm very surprised by Vichy seemingly ignoring this idea. I would just go rook c8 now, for instance, for Black, he's finally done it, and I'm also surprised that Magnus decided not to stop it. Because that really is the only, and AB4 kind of shows that this is the one active idea White had. But at least now White will have a passed pawn on a6.
So show here c5 takes d6 and all of a
that's
sudden White is very much in business.
That's extremely unattractive, and that could have been stopped by playing, let's say, rook c8 and move 21. But we don't have to return to that. Now the bishop on b5 is actually kind of relevant, because
bishop c6, a7.
Black would very much like to control the e8 square. You can also go for like rook f3, rook d3, and try to sack this exchange on e3. Once again, because e8 is covered by the bishop on b5. But that might run into some rook takes b5 ideas.
b3? What's going on?
I think once again, he's playing against the ideas of rook takes b5 in some positions.
I just want a bishop c6 and push my pawn. Rook f7.
Yeah, I don't think you will get
bishop b7
you
take.
Yeah. It's a weird position, because both sides will find it hard to progress from the sort of make further progress from the position they already have. But you probably fancy Black will have an easier time than White doing something, because the pawn on e3 is a much bigger thorn in White's side than the pawn on a6. The pawn on a6 is more or less neutralized, because
distraction.
Yeah, the rook on the 7th controls a7, and you can't ever play rook a1 after you played b3, because the bishop is...
Yeah, that's why I was so surprised that he was happily blitzing on b3.
Yeah, and
Magnus seems thrilled to give an exchange here. You have to make sure it's not equal after White gives
Yeah,
it back.
I'm surprised by rook b6, because he kind of committed himself. Now a7 is such a huge threat that he kind of committed himself to giving this exchange. You could go rook e8 to wait for... He does play it. I wonder if he wants to go rook e7 and go into the pawn endgame, but that probably just loses.
Vichy, of course, gives the exchange back instantly.
Yeah, this is the position where you can go rook e7, and he already didn't. So this probably is a draw. Rook e6.
Yeah, and rook a3.
Everything will get traded. Or you can also just pass, because the king just never crosses the e-file here. Right?
Just go g4, king g3.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks fairly safe for White. And Black.
Can White think? No, I made a draw already. All right, that gives us the chance to switch to a game of your choice. Or choosing.
Can we briefly just have a look? I think it's the... well, Wesley is already completely winning, so there's no point watching that.
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can watch the ending of that game, but yeah, the game is effectively over. Yeah.
Against the reigning Blitz World Champion, Sergei Kayakin.
Yeah, but I think in this tournament, I mean,
There's a lot of World Champion talent.
yeah, finding the fish at that table is.
And
Very-
Fabiano's supposed to be the fish
I
here,
don't-
even
I
though
don't- yeah, I don't think
people
that's
have
true.
started disapproving of that theory.
Yeah, I don't think that's true at all. And yeah, let's look at this. And there were some drastic developments in that game.
I'm saying that because Fabiano for a long time had at least a reputation, but also a rating that was not up to his usual
did he
style of
play
play
E5?
in Blitz. But recently his rating has caught up.
Yeah, I don't really understand why he didn't play e5 there. I don't think he needed to give
I
up
jinxed
this
him.
piece. Yeah, maybe you did. Yeah, but even yeah, I'm not sure. But once again, okay, that's yeah. I think they're both probably down to really not a lot of time here because there seems to be a surprisingly high randomness factor to what's going on the board.
They're playing 3+2, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty much the official time control.
Yeah, I think
No.
this is 3+2. This now is probably very close to equality.
GF isn't white winning.
Yeah,
His knight looks dumb.
maybe even.
Boom.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Queen d5, bishop d5. King.
Yeah, king g3, g5. Well, you could play yourself into
Queen.
difficulties. Yeah, this-
F5 mistake.
Yeah,
Queen
But
c7.
on the other hand, you're probably threatening mate on the other side of the board. Okay, queen f7. Yeah, it looks like Fabi will emerge.
Fabi tricked him.
Yeah, Fabi will emerge on top from this. Yeah, this looks. Yeah, he can pick up all these pawns with checks. Yeah, queen g6 just wins on the spot. And queen g8 f6. And yeah, this is going to be a win for. Whoa, mate.
Checkmate next move.
Did not miss mate in two as I did. So well played by Fabi, who lost the first one. We think, yeah.
I can't remember things that were like minutes ago.
Yeah.
He did lose the first one to Kayaki.
Yeah, I wanted to do my thing of creating a pen and paper cross table, but
Please.
I was too late, and now I don't have neither pen. I have neither pen nor paper. Trying to be more correct with my grammar. So
All games donezo?
decently large amount of draws in this round. Vishy drew with Magnus. Anish drew with Kramnik. Levon drew with whoever it was Levon played. If you scroll a bit, I can tell you who that was. And apparently there's no one on two out of two already, which is somewhat surprising because you normally get someone who wins the first two games. Yeah, Hikaru drew Levon and Wesley beat Karyakin. So there's a great number of people on 50%, including some who won the first one and lost the second one, and vice versa. One player in plus and one player in minus, which is really stunning.
Amazing parity in this field.
Yeah, not that we don't know that this is a very, very close field, but in a Blitz tournament with only 2 rounds, you don't really expect only one player to be in plus after 2 rounds. But obviously still everything to play for.
Let me... Oh no, this is too ugly even for my standards. 1 second. I'm trying to do stuff. Not my forte, as we know. Can any of you guys see this? I can make it a little bigger. Yeah.
Well played. Yeah, so that's the situation. Lev actually on outright first on +1. I will stop saying how surprising this is. I think I made my point fairly clear. And yeah, most of the field on 50%. And
That's not that surprising. He's a decent Blitz player too, right? He used to be a Blitz world champion.
It's not who is an outright leader, but yeah. I will at some point start responding properly to your trolling. That wasn't a particularly good effort. And yeah, most of the field on 50% and Vladimir Kramnik on -1 down below. And these are the pairings for round 3. Are we still sticking with every single Magnus game?
We don't have to, even though Carlson Giri is hard to pass up, I gotta say. But I will give you one non-Magnus game of your choosing, but only if it's Kramnik Karana.
Okay. Okay. If you put it like that, I was going for the actual leader of the tournament play.
Let's go with Levon.
Yeah, I think Aron and Anand generally are interesting games.
Oop. There you saw a glimpse of the Chess24 chat, but that's not what I was going for. I wanted to go here. No one there yet. Aronia and Anand used to be a lopsided rivalry because Levin was winning every single game against Vichy 10 years ago.
Yeah, Levin at some point had a very, very good record against Vichy.
Well, that changed a bit, right?
Anvil. Well, I don't actually keep track. I don't even keep track of my scores against people. It's very difficult for me to be up to date about.
I know these things because I did a lot of these funny cartoons showing the scores. Levon's still up against Vichy in classical chess, but not by as much anymore. And there were some fantastic games that Vichy won as well. Like I recall this Semi-Slav from Vaikansee a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was
nice.
stunning bit of preparation, and also from the moment Vichy was played to Vichy was made to think and play on his own. He did very, very well. Yeah, I think that game was game of the year potentially in some online competitions.
And Pramod NVS in the chat, to my bitter disappointment, says, "Did you watch Wonder Woman?" He says, "It's a decent one to watch." And I'm disappointed because I was going to watch it, but I don't trust Pramod's taste at all. So now you ruined it, Pramod. Thanks a lot. No, it's not out in German cinemas yet.
And people are baying for blood in chat, hoping Anish destroys Magnus. Might happen.
Mm-hmm. Might or might not. You know what? In this round, we shall give you the full highlights of Carlson Giri after the game.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a decent deal.
Are they on break already?
Yeah, this seems to be a lengthy break for no reason. Mm-hmm. Not that we know what's going on, but as you can see on the screen, there is some movement, but there's still no players at the boards, and it's been, I think, the full 5 minutes already, potentially, since the previous one ended.
Let's go to our overhead cam and see what is going on there. Who's wearing this crew t-shirt? Is that Göran? Might not be him.
No, can't really see Göran wearing a crew t-shirt.
I don't know. It's
Well,
not
probably
him, but I think he'd wear it.
I think for the first day of the tournament, he probably did some introductions and had to give interviews and such. So
Maybe he would only wear a boss t-shirt.
yeah, more likely.
And what else is going on? Juve or Real? We watched the Champions League final. I did not care very much. I tend to root against Real no matter what, because I like watching sports rooting against people. So I was pro Juve, but didn't hurt my feelings as much as a Cavaliers victory would hurt my feelings.
Yeah, didn't really care all that much. I find it extremely difficult to get interested in football these days. Although, I mean, the Champions League final I still watch if I am next to a television set, but yeah, becoming more and more of.
What's the furthest away you've ever been from a television set?
Well, you sometimes are on a plane when there's things
They
happening.
have sort of TVs, right? Champions League final? No, not all planes.
No, I don't think so.
No, that's actually true.
Yeah, live TV. I don't recall getting much, in a way of live TV options, even on those very rare occasions when I fly non-cattle class.
Yeah. Especially short distance flights. I think long distance nowadays you get some stuff at least. Also depends on whatever. The airline. Time control is 3 minutes per player for the whole game with a 2-second increment per move. Indeed.
And CP Kaitert also said, why follow the world champion Karakin, which was a bit of a weird question because we weren't.
That's true.
And as such it was phrased, you get the feeling that maybe there was a word not missing somewhere in that question.
It was not missing?
Maybe the question was why not follow the world champion
Ah,
Karakin.
gotcha.
And we will, I'm sure, at some point stumble upon his game and then follow it with great interest. But
Looks like dudes be sitting down.
yeah, it does seem like round 3 is about to
Let's
start.
see
finally.
if I can find the correct camp. This is not it. Go away. This is it.
And there are already moves, apparently, which
Yeah, we
we are somewhat behind.
slightly delayed, but not that much. Miracles of modern technology. They make a move in Stavanger, and seconds later, or actually instantly on this screen. It arrives in Hamburg.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what this opening is from a few moves I could see. Since something I think has taken on c5, it might be some kind of Queen's Gambit declined, but it's difficult to be sure precisely. People are asking for TV show recommendations. I think it's a bit too early in the broadcast for that.
Yeah, because we still haven't given up hope that we might get a move here.
Yeah.
If we don't, we can talk all the TV shows you want. I don't have that many to recommend currently. And my eyes aren't good enough anymore to tell what's going on here. Can I go?
Yeah, I think this is Queen's Gambit declined.
I can't see a thing. What's going on? Give me moves.
Yeah, why no moves?
I don't know, man.
That's not good.
Westworld is a great series. I disagree. It's alright, but it's not real. Still, can I at least... What can I do?
We could potentially try and make the video window larger, but
I have a plan, yeah. Probably not a good plan, but a plan nevertheless. Nah. Will this help our old worn down eyes to recognize what's going on? Not a lot, right?
I stand by my assertion that this is Queen's Gambit decline, but yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't help a ton.
Looks like this line Levon used to play with bishop f4, castles e3, knight bd7, bishop e2, takes on c4, whatever, castles c5, and queens come off, and you play some endgame where white is maybe a teeny tiny bit better on paper, but not by much. Also, if there's any tech-savvy people watching, I have the right PGN, I would think, because I see the games, but I have no moves. Can I get any of those? Just as you just gotta ask for stuff. That's what my mom always told me. Jan, you have to ask for things in life, or people won't give them to you.
How's that working out for you?
I don't know. I haven't asked anything yet, but I'm planning with maturity. Hang on, what have I done now? I should ask somebody to fix the design for me. Ooh, so small all of a sudden. They deserve to be a little bigger, I would say. Anyway, this is the game. Apologies for whatever, but we got it right, more or less. Less more than more. Because it was this line, and here bishop d3. The move Levon has played before struck me as very odd the first time I saw it.
Yeah, it's a non-obvious choice.
Allowing this, I would thought equalizes, but he seems to think differently.
Well, it is the position where one side has more bishops than the other, but yeah, structurally black is very, very solid, and Vichy also is playing quite fast and quite confidently. For instance, I think bishop b4, judging by what we've seen on the live stream, I mean the video, bishop b4 was played extremely fast, so Vichy is...
No, this is theory. I'm not sure if these guys had a game against each other in this line, but Levon certainly had the position after bishop b4. So Vichy is booked up.
Doesn't seem like very much here. And yeah, the structure got somewhat gentrified, but it should still be perfectly fine for black. For instance, I suspect you can play knight a6 even here. Allow rook d7 and then play f6 and rook d8.
Something broke during all my wild clicking earlier. But I will get it fixed, because they call me wise man with the design skills of a 5-year-old that has never designed anything.
Yeah, and Vichy went with the immediate f6. I liked my suggestion better, frankly, but this is also fine. Just king f7. Nothing wrong with that either.
Looks very equal, doesn't it?
Yeah. You need to pay attention to f5 in some positions, maybe, but I don't really see what it does after king f7. And if black is given a tempo to completely stabilize by playing something like rook c7, he will be just perfectly fine. Bishop goes with an even more conservative option, knight f8, which I'm not... king f7, knight e5 check, I guess, was what was bothering him.
But now is Levon getting somewhere? Knight to a4?
Yeah,
Ooh! Take?
check and then rook b8, I guess.
Check,
But
rook
even
e2,
there,
checks.
he goes rook b8 straight
That's
away.
his point.
I think that's maybe smarter. I'm quite sure that's smarter. Yeah, objectively this has to be fine for black because he will have enough pressure against the b3 pawn to never have to worry about his slight weaknesses on a5 and e6.
And for all you Magnus fans out there, here's a little update. Because the Vichy game ended in a draw, I don't think the Magnus game will end in a draw as well.
Did the Vichy game end in a draw?
Yep, handshake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Magnus is totally winning against Danish here, and he generally doesn't, screw up positions like this very often.
I promised you full highlights. So first highlight, Magnus seems to have decided that one knight c3 is the way to go in this tournament. And it goes c5. I thought this was the one line where knight c3 made some sense because you go d4, but apparently he's happy transposing some Sicilian.
Yeah, and also a very Magnus-like approach here because people generally connect this line with the idea of playing e5 as early as possible. And Magnus just played a chess game without really trying for anything spectacular out of the opening. And then I suspect Danish missed something.
Here,
because you don't really want to play bc6. Something needs to happen for you to have to play bc6. I'm not sure what that is. Like, why can't you take with the queen?
I don't know. This is moving too fast for me.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but and he also obviously missed this 95 shot. But his position was already very unpleasant, and the game is by now over because not only is white in exchange up, he's also giving mate, pretty much because the pawn on f7 will fall.
Yeah, Anish resigned here at 95. Rook f7.
Yeah. So yeah, something has gone badly wrong for Anish in that game. Sort of straight out of the opening, he had what seemed like a perfectly reasonable position, and then he just got very swiftly outplayed by.
So let's go to this point again. Queen
yeah,
c6.
I'm really not sure why this hasn't
Before
been.
you
Before
can
I take everything and go
my
queen
jumps.
c2,
Yeah.
95, rook e6, knight g5 maybe, and then f4. Yeah, that could be an issue. Yeah, I can see why that would be an issue for black.
Starped. And 95, rook d7. Not saying it's great, but
I guess he just disliked this position and thought
Yeah.
b takes e6 gave him a better shot, because at least he got through to the e4 pawn. But that structure and that knight on a5 will be a problem. And
then he clearly blundered this bishop h6.
yeah, I guess you play knight c4 and you hope. But yeah, here there's no hope left. Knight f6 check next move. And Sergei Karyakin seems to be completely winning against Hikaru. I thought Hikaru at some point created very serious technical issues for Sergei, but
Someone wrote Naka blunder. I'm not sure when, but probably something went wrong.
yeah, something clearly went wrong because this is just a completely lost position now. Resignable. Can we have a brief look at the position around move 36?
Around move 36.
Yeah, because this is when we started watching. Yeah, I thought black could take on d4 and go bishop d3 here. But I guess the knight on h3 gets caught. I guess it's very similar to what happened in the game. You do win the exchange, but then the knight gets trapped. Like rook f1 takes, and you can't save the knight on h3. That must be the explanation for why Hikaru didn't do this. Yeah, and as for the rest of that game, it's very difficult to judge what happened. It was happening too quickly for us to correctly grasp. Yeah, and here, yeah, he had to go for something similar because, yeah, he's 2 pawns down and the knight on h3 is completely stuck.
He's lost.
Yeah, not a nice position to find yourself in.
Speaking of lost, maxime-vachier graph beat Wesley so.
In a very quirky French where he played 3 bishop d3, rook h7, I guess. That's very cute, yeah. And queen g6 mate. Yeah, Maxime played 3 bishop d3 against the French, which is not a line that is supposed to give white anything at all, but he was soon much better.
Nicely done by Maxime. Let's see where that leaves us.
And there's one more game we haven't mentioned yet. Vladimir Kramnik continues struggling, losing with white to Fabiano.
Oh, with white?
No. Yeah, with white.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, standings first.
Hang on a second. He also played 3 bishop d3 against the French. Are they working with MVL?
And are they showing their secret analysis in the Blitz?
Yeah, those are the question that will not let us sleep at night. But his bishop f3, bishop d3 French did not go.
I believe there's a video series on Chess24 by Pepe Cuenca advocating this, which I greatly mocked him for, because it looked ridiculous. You allow this, knight f6, now you want to put the bishop here and claim you're better?
Yeah, both games continued, c5, knight e2, knight c6, bishop e3. And here, Wesley for some reason took on d4, and Fabi instead played knight d5, which I think is generally a lot more logical. But
if memory serves, there's also weird moves like this.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah, it got very, very sharp very fast, because after knight d5, Vladi played bishop d5 and knight bc3, giving up his entire king side for initiative.
That's not his style, is it?
Not generally, but he is a good enough player to do whatever he likes.
Obviously.
To a very great standard. So. Yeah, looked very interesting for white for a second, because soon the king will have to go to d8, and yeah, it became very sharp. But maybe black was fine all along. It's hard to judge.
Yeah, it is. And now everybody is 2 out of 3. Someone must be losing. If everybody has +1, someone must be losing.
Yeah, and there's now more people in minus. There's Vladi on half out of 3, not having the greatest event so far, and 3 people on -1. Somewhat surprisingly, one of them is Hikaru, who is generally believed to be one of the better Rapid and Blitz players out there.
I was going to ask you that. What's the pecking order at the moment in Blitz? I understand there's a rating list, but off the top of your head, who's the top guys out there?
I don't know how to put them in proper order, but there will be no surprises with the names. It will be some combination of Magnus, Hikaru, MVL. Those will be the first 3 names off the top of my head. Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alexander Grishuk would be my Russian nominees for fighting for the top, and there are some Ukrainians with tremendously high ratings who most people have never seen.
But those probably would not win this tournament, right?
Yeah, you have to assume they probably would not have been favorites in this tournament.
Speaking of this tournament, in the next round, I could even bring this up if.
And before people accuse me of being unfairly biased against Ukrainians, I mean one specific Ukrainian called, I believe, Shkuro, who plays in some weird tournaments.
I got the reference. I'm not familiar with him, but he does like this trick of winning weaker tournaments with 9 out of 9, and therefore that way
more or less, I think 25 out of 25. Yeah.
Okay.
There were huge flames.
It's not illegal.
No. There are huge flame threads on Facebook. I mean, you can find flame threads on Facebook on any subject, including that one. And yeah, some people are upset. Some people think it's a great trolling tactic, and why not?
I'd be willing to do it, but I don't know where these tournaments are.
Yeah, that's...
Also, I would probably lose to Shkuro, and then I'd have 24 out of 25. And might not win all the rating. And next round, we have Carlson Aronia. These Carlson games always look so tempting.
Yeah, what else is there?
Kramnik, Nakamura, MVL, who I think both made your top 3.
I think that might be the game, yeah.
All right.
Since there is no outright leader of the tournament, as far as I can see, yeah, we can pick MVL as one of the shared leaders, and Hikaru is very good at these types of games. So
let's check in with these gentlemen. Let's see if anybody's sitting. No one's sitting. Someone's walking by. No one's sitting. So what opening shall they play? Maxime is one of the guys where you might have a shot of guessing even in Blitz, right?
Yeah, Maxime doesn't dodge. Yeah, you're not going to get what we're getting from Magnus, for instance, where it actually normalizes by move 5. In both games, it was kind of normalized by move 5, but he does start with one knight c3. I think with Maxime he'll just play his stuff, which means probably
Knight of Grunfeld.
yeah, 1e4 or
Maxime is black.
Maxime. Yeah, okay, then would be interesting if they actually continue discussing all the extremely sharp Nidors, but I think that's somewhat unlikely because if Hikaru has something there in this lineup, I think he has a better than even shot of actually getting it in a classical game. And blowing it for a blitz win, even if it's so good you're more or less guaranteed to win the game, it feels like a waste.
Also, does anybody have anything that's guaranteed to win a game against the Nidorf?
No,
Maybe in Blitz.
In Blitz, I think there are some ideas which will, in practical terms, just win you the game because you can't really. I mean, you might be able to guess luckily, but that more or less is it. You will not have enough time to work it out. I mean, with someone like MVL, his feeling for the opening in the Nidorf is so strong that he might actually be able to guess it. But that will be guesswork. It's an incredibly... I mean, some of the sharper Nidorf lines are just too complicated for a 3+2 game.
Both of these players, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you what they've been up to in 2017, which first of all shows horrible preparation on my part.
MVL played both the Grand Prix.
Grand Prix
and he played Grenke, right? He played Grenke, yeah. Hikaru won his usual Zurich, which he does every year these days.
Did he play Gibraltar this year?
He played Gibraltar, and I think he won Gibraltar.
He beat Anton in a tie break. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think that was the finals.
Yeah, so Hikaru played that. He played Zurich. He played both the Grand Prix, where I believe he is not doing horribly, but he probably just needs to win the third one outright to have a shot. So I think for him, the World Cup assumes ever greater importance, since we assume once again that the race for the 2 rating spots is between the 3 people who have 2800, or at least used to have 2800 at some point during this year.
What you're talking about is there's 2 qualifiers for the candidates tournament by rating, and I believe the current frontrunners there are Wesley So and then Fabiano Caruana with Vladimir Kramnik in close pursuit, but for both these guys, it would be a bit of a long shot.
Yeah, and this position I've seen
for
before.
E3.
Yeah, because this is what Hikaru played against me in Moscow.
This is some sort of weird anti-Grunfeld. He's trying to fight against D5.
Yeah, it's become popular at some point, maybe 3 years ago or so. I think Grishuk was the first one who introduced it at the very top level. Hikaru has beaten Jan Nepomniachtchi in Zurich in precisely the b6, bishop b7 subline of this. I just went for a Benoni instead, and didn't really get a Benoni and was suffering, and then was better. But yeah, that's a traumatic event. People are still asking me about this as well.
Sorry, man.
Not you. I have no problems with you. But people
we'll get there.
I do have problems with people in general.
Tell me about it. Maxime has problems with this position in general because he lost this position to Anish Giri, which kicked him out of the World Cup like a couple of years ago. I think you might have been up there. But there I believe he went d5, not e6.
And this is what Jan also played. And yeah, today he is playing e6, d5. And yeah, this is obviously not going to be a refutation of the... And he's still taking with the knight.
I thought now you go EDF.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that, because yeah, you would have thought that having played e6, which you don't have to, you could play d5 on the previous move and not, there's no refutation.
White typically just goes bishop d2 here and is saying, you know what, as long as you don't get knight d7, c5, I'm slightly better, so please free yourself. And now that c5 was looming, he takes maybe once b4, maybe once bishop c3.
Yeah, this is very close to what he got against Jan, and it looked very innocuous for a while, and then suddenly just looked horribly, horribly unpleasant for black, and was won by white by move 30.
Also, if you're asking yourself, why not just play the King's Indian with d6? You can do that, but most Grunfeld players don't want to play d6, knight b7, e5. And the white setup is not ridiculous against the King's Indian.
No, it's not horrible. Once again, it's not going to refute the King's Indian, but it's playable.
c5, do you go e4 here, or do you... Yeah, he does go e4.
e4, and maybe even
I was
g5,
wondering about d5.
But then takes knight f6. I think you probably go something like bishop g5 first, which is what he's done. And...
Queen somewhere,
queen c7 is the most obvious move, but then you do play d5. Takes, queen d6, and it becomes very, very sharp, because it kind of hinges on whether white can immediately shift this queen from d6 or not.
Looks like some theoretical Grunfeld almost all of a sudden. After
Yeah, very
D5
close to
takes.
some, you know, like
Some
rook
bishop
b1,
D2 weird
rook
ones.
b1 Grunfelds or bishop d2 Grunfelds, yeah. There is bishop f6 here if black wants it, but it's awkward. And MVL goes for queen c8, which is a bit of a strange choice to my eyes, because after d5 takes, you might have to allow d6. And generally once it reaches d6, it becomes very annoying. And as for white, I think you need to play d5. I don't think you will get very far if you avoid it.
If you go for tricks, then even if you take the pawn, you don't have much. That might also be knight f6.
Yeah, knight f6 would be my guess. Yeah, immediately creating counterplay against the entire center.
Yeah.
And he does go d5, takes rook e8. And yeah, d6 immediately, I guess black plays knight e5 or queen c6 first. He did play queen c6. Yeah, these positions are very, very double-edged.
Normally they're bad for black.
But yeah, but they can be. Yeah, you need to be. Which is why I was somewhat surprised by the speed with which MVL has done all this, because the stakes become very, very high here. You could just get completely lost very fast.
One of my most cherished childhood memories is I once won a game with bishop f7, knight g5 check in this position.
Yeah, queen e4, queen b3 looks tempting. Even taking and going bishop b5 looks very tempting. But there, I guess black might be in time with bishop takes e4 and bishop f5, so as not to lose immediately, I mean.
Queen b3 wants queen f5, or what is it?
Also knight e5, maybe. Knight e5 might be a good move there. So he does take rook e4. I guess bishop b... But what is he planning after bishop b5? Just knight f6, yeah, I've forgotten this existed. On the other hand, if you don't lose straight away, this pawn gets rounded up in some positions, so it's very difficult to sort of play this perfectly on short time.
Do you Grunfeld players have like a special love-hate relationship with this passed d-pawn?
More of a hate than a love relationship, but yeah, I mean, you do get to these situations often enough to have a somewhat different approach to it than people who don't play the Grunfeld. Still looks very, very dodgy for black. I think you kind of have to go rook e6, otherwise you lose material. Maybe a6 first, though. But a6 is awkward.
a6, there might be
maybe
some grabbery. No.
Yeah, rook b6, but then maybe I can take on b7, and then rook takes b5 even.
Barely.
Yeah, but the problem is if you go rook e6, which is the first move that comes to mind, just saving the knight on f6, takes knight e5, is very, very dangerous looking.
Looks kind of lost.
Sometimes black doesn't lose these positions, but and this already is on the board. After a6, the bishop will have to, like if you give white one more tempo to play rook d1, he played h6 though, not a6. The point stands though, bishop h4, g3, but maybe knight h5. Maybe Maxime has actually calculated this, well, he's obviously calculated this, but maybe his calculation is more precise. Knight h5 or knight e4. Knight e4 probably is better, yeah. I like knight e4.
You're in time somehow.
Yeah. No, but this is, as I was, trying to make a point, it is a matter of tempi here. Give white one more tempo somewhere and he will be completely winning because he will be able to stabilize. And the pawn on d7 will just be too strong, but here, yeah, bishop e3, you just go knight d5, I suppose. And, or a6 first, but I wanted knight d5 for some reason. We can do it now.
No, it's
so there has been
equal?
there has been a trade-off, and generally, as a Grunfeld player, I would pick black here.
Very
because
active.
your bishops are tremendous, and the pawn on b2 is potentially weak, and your majority on the queen side looks a more relevant one, at least for the time being, than the majority white has on the king side.
And the trend is also your friend.
Yeah, I like knight f4. I think white needs to try and kind of fight this concretely. And yeah, Hikaru is using the fact that bishop b2, rook b1 will lose him the pawn, lose Maxime the pawn on b6. But just pushing the d-pawn forward, yeah, this...
Unique for a Grunfeld player to have his own passed d-pawn.
Yeah, that doesn't happen every day.
d3 wants
bishop
to give a check.
h5 check and rook e1, yeah. He might be able to... I quite like how he approached this. It could have been so much worse. And knight takes d5 is not a move you make easily because it connects the black structure, it gives black, a number of tempi. E takes d5 and d4 and d3, all of the three moves were played with a tempo. But It was just, I think, better than the alternatives.
Rook e5 very deep.
Well, the bishop is stuck, yeah. Black is still better. I'm somewhat surprised that Hikaru didn't take on e7. I think going rook d1 is just a very... But here maybe you just... Yeah, it's difficult to make moves. You kind of have to play bishop c3 and hope you're not lost.
But you're in trouble here as well. Rook is going to e2.
In a lot of trouble. In a lot of trouble, yeah. And this looks like, potentially a very played game and an important game for MVL. I don't see why he didn't play rook e2. I thought rook e2 was just winning on the previous move, but maybe he is just in control here. Well, not maybe. I mean, he's clearly is in control. Just king e6, d5, solidify your control over everything. Or this. Yeah, winning a piece in 2 moves is never really a mistake.
Bishop g2, so resourceful.
Hikaru doesn't miss those small chances, but even here, you get the feeling that rook d3 followed by c3, yeah. Although after f4, white might be able to give up the bishop for 2 pawns. And then the game definitely continues, because if you take the a pawns away, it's clearly a draw. And here white can try and, I don't know, to go for king h3, h4.
By the way, you need to be a tremendous player to make it here with white. Like the defense Hikaru came up with.
It's happening at such a speed that we can't really stop and admire Hikaru's play, to the extent that he deserves.
This feels like a draw, right?
Might still be lost, but it's not easily won at all if it's won.
King push. Yeah.
Well, you might run out of moves, and it's a correct square, but yeah, it does feel like it might be a draw. I'm not sure. f5, f6
Put
now.
The pawn on f6, no?
I think the bishop e7 maybe, but maybe it was like a Zugzwang, because with the bishop on d8, white didn't have this option. Yeah, okay, now it's a draw, obviously. MVL decided not to push it.
Nice game.
Yeah, nicely played game.
Oh, and we can learn rook endgames. My favorite thing in the whole wild world. I normally blunder some rook a6 and then I lose, but if you don't do that, it's normally a draw. That's
I don't think Vishy is losing this position. I think Vishy knows what he's doing.
Well, Vishy's also white.
Hang on a second. Oh yeah, okay. This I think is a draw. But
now after e7, it's not so hard.
Yeah, but rook f7 check, rook f. But then he starts giving checks from the a file, just in time. Yeah, this is just a clear draw now. Well, any move. Rook a1. Yeah, rook a1 is I think the simplest one.
Yeah,
draw has been agreed. There was also a draw in a game between Wesley So and Vladimir Kramnik. Magnus won again against Lev.
Magnus means business. He wants those 5 whites.
I don't know if that was a sign of respect or anything, but against Lev he did not play one knight c3.
Oh,
he actually
went
played
for the other knight.
He actually played something very normal.
Half serious.
Yeah, half serious, and played knight bg2 here. And then, from what seemed like a not a very tragic position for black, just outcalculated Lev seemingly.
Where's the outcalculating business?
It comes soon.
E4.
Yeah, like here, I think Lev assumed that the bishop on c5 is fine, but then Magnus played. He played bishop b4, and after bishop takes f2, just played queen e2.
Ah, that's nasty.
And, judging by what happened later, there's just nothing here, because b5 knight d6, I guess.
Yeah.
Even like b5 knight d6, why don't you go rook d8 here? Maybe e5 simply. Yeah. So yeah, Lev thought maybe that pieces are exchanged, everything is going sort of according to plan, and then suddenly he was a piece down and totally lost.
And to nobody's surprise, on the internets, Anish Giri drew against Fabiano Caruana. Fabiano told me that at some point they had a 17-game drawing streak in classical chess, but then Fabiano won a game, and he was feeling kind of bad about it. That's probably not true, but he did break that streak. And yeah, this looks like a solid game. Let's check in with the games and the standings. And the pairings too.
Sure, so this is the situation, and Magnus is now leading on +2. There are 3 people on +1. The world Blitz champion Sergei Karyakin, Fabi, who, as you mentioned, there is this, I think by now completely unfair idea that Fabi is not good at Blitz, and MVL, who nobody even thinks he's not good at Blitz. There's a decent chunk of people on 50%, I suspect. Only 2 people, yeah.
People generally believe that Vichy is also good at Blitz.
Yeah, well,
in the 90s, Vichy was the dominating Blitz player.
I think I spoke on air about my experiences of first playing Blitz against Vichy when I thought I was good at the game. And then I played a training match of maybe 8 games against Vichy. And I realized that, there's a certain level of good I still need to sort of aspire to. 3 people on -1, among them 2 Americans, Hikaru and Wesley, and Vladimir bringing up the rear with -2. Yeah, his chances for 5 whites seem
Doesn't look good.
distant. Yeah, although, I mean, the field is tightly packed enough that if he starts winning games, very soon he will find himself very much in contention. But yeah, -2 after 4 games doesn't look particularly promising in that respect.
With Vladimir, and of course all of this, with the usual disclaimers, it feels very hit and miss Blitz events, right? Sometimes he plays extremely well, and sometimes just things don't work out at all.
Yeah, and also I think if he doesn't start well, I think he kind of accepts it and doesn't try to go for broke.
Especially here, where if you're five blacks, it's not like it matters if you finish last or if you finish 6th, let's say. Right?
Yeah, it's also not life and death because of course with Vlad's repertoire you want the 5 whites, but for some people 5 blacks is a bigger issue because you will not equalize in some of them. With Vlad and his repertoire and his depth of knowledge, I don't think he's bothered all that much.
Right. Still, I always had mixed feelings about this way of determining who gets more whites and more blacks. Because does Magnus Carlson really need any help? Like this, he's more or less ensured an extra white game in every tournament that uses this. Is that fair in the long run? I'm just saying Magnus as a random name, but anybody who's super strong in both formats will normally get an extra white game.
We can see somewhat surprising results even in this tournament. If, let's say, the trend continues and we end up with a final score sheet looking, final cross table looking something like it looks right now, Hikaru might not get 5 whites, and that's not something very many people would have bet against, I think, before the Blitz tournament started. So, first of all, it's not a given. Things can happen. But on the other hand, yes, it I wouldn't say penalizes it, more like it gives additional bonuses to people who are good at Blitz. But compared to complete randomness of the coin toss or whatever it is that is used, I'm not really against additional chess skills giving you a little bonus.
Then we see Wesley So getting some, what I'm assuming is water, during the break, and we have to take an important decision, Peter. Which game?
Well, it has to be Karek and Carlson.
All right. The reigning Blitz World Champion against the reigning Classical Chess World Champion, who beat the reigning Blitz World Champion in the Classical Chess World Championship match last year.
A tongue twister, if I ever heard one.
I wasn't going for it, but yeah. Magnus, however, we've talked about him not winning a tournament for a while. Still, the tournaments he didn't win, like in the Blitz and in the Rapid, I think he shared first place, right?
Yeah, he tied for first in both and was extremely disappointed. Sort of he looked extremely pissed on stage. He didn't really want to accept his medals, or so it seemed when you were watching the video.
He likes to win.
Yeah, as the favorite movie of every single Soviet school child of my age, Over the Top, says. I don't remember what it says, but the gist of it is that second is nothing.
Over the Top is some arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone?
Exactly.
Why would that be everybody's favorite?
It was on TV constantly for no reason at all.
Okay. Speaking of on TV constantly, I've heard Sergei Karyakin became quite famous in Russia.
Not that he was completely unfamous
before, but after the match.
Yeah, there's this walk we go to with my wife in the evenings in particular when the weather is nice. It's like a 4.5 kilometer walk from A to B. And along that walk right now, we have to pass about 7 portraits of Karyakin.
Wow.
Advertising banking services and such.
7 different ones, or it's the same case?
It's generally the same one, but I think there are 2 versions of it. And also, I think all the luggage trolleys in Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow are now emblazoned with his face.
Is he an expert on banking services? Have you had that conversation with him?
Sponsored by people who are, but I don't know. Not really a conversation we ever had in any kind of detail.
He is an expert in playing Magnus Carlson. Prepared for it for a long time. Even though, with white neither side really could make big impact in that match. Let's see if they're going for series openings here, or if they're saying, you know what, this is a Blitz tournament, let's play some nonsense. With black, Magnus's nonsense tolerance, I think, is a little lower normally than with white, right?
Yeah, but d4 f5 though.
Well, the Dutch.
Not something he's doing.
He's played some stonewalls, but...
No, of course, I mean, we all... I think most people experimented with the Dutch at some point.
Not me.
Not a single game?
No, not the opening, nor the people.
I know you're lying about the people. I'm now tempted to check the database for games.
No, I played the Leningrad when I was very young. I'm sorry. Knight d2, you could argue about knight h3, queen c2, knight d2. Generally, if the knight is not on f3 yet, it's considered to be smart to keep this open option, because controlling the square is useful.
Yeah. Because it goes via f4 to d3 later on, which is supposed to be the best square.
Knight c6, that's trying to use that he's already committed to knight d2 and knight h3.
And if you force white to play e3, you've achieved something actually, because the bishop will not get to f4 now. On the other hand, the knight probably doesn't belong on c6 in the stonewall, so...
Magnus once mocked Nigel Short, I'm not sure if it was on Twitter or somewhere, for playing these horrible stonewalls with a knight on c6 publicly. And now he's...
He's going to tremendous length to mock people and troll people by his opening choices, seemingly.
There is, I think, more thought put into the trolling aspect of his opening choices than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
Or bishop to b2. What do you do here? Knight to e4? I don't know what you do.
Well, I'd probably start by playing bishop b7, but the knight has to go to e4 at some point.
Bishop b7, knight f4.
Yeah, but
aren't you scared? You take that?
Not that, but maybe...
Bishop a6.
Bishop a6.
Same story, though.
Still, I think you just snap it off, actually. And...
then you play some moves.
Yeah, and then you make moves, Put the knight on e4, actually try to persuade white to go f3.
I should try to find video of that game.
Nope. Nope.
Those are the guys.
Yeah, and this is what he's done. He's taken on a 4 and gone knight e4. Somewhat expectedly, given the choices. Rook c1 for the time being looks like a very normal move. People saying they remember you playing the Dutch in '98. That sounds like a bit of a tall story.
98? No, 98 I was already a mature chess player. No way I played the Dutch then. That's a lie.
I was
94. 94 I believe is more.
I was more referring to the fact that anyone can claim they remember anything that happened in '98.
No, no one remembers anything from the wild 90s. But people have databases.
Yeah, that is true. I'm not sure what this rook e3 move is all about, but it's a... Yeah, I would just play... I guess the idea is that rook c1 kind of allowed knight b4 with the threat of knight d3, and by playing rook e3 here, he rules this out, so he can now play rook c1 a lot more confidently. But yeah, queen d7 followed by rook a
go
d8.
here, and then dc is sometimes an option. Doesn't look too terrible for black, does it?
Nope.
This bishop,
Yeah, this bishop is the awkward piece white has.
Therefore it takes de, maybe some d5s.
I think f3 will happen regardless of what black recaptures with. Yeah, and that's indeed what happened here. Fe f3, and yeah, this I quite like this because this change of structure. If black doesn't have something immediate in the center, this will favor white. If white manages to not lose any pawns in the center, play queen d2, rook a1, bishop g4, the pawn on e6 will be a constant source of worry for black.
DC, Magnus understands he has to sharpen the structure a
And
bit.
rook a8 is what I expect to happen. He takes b3 first, and I'd be sorely tempted to not recapture back, but maybe there is no good move to not take on b. Because if white has to recapture on b3, then waiting for a move and only playing rook a8 next makes perfect sense.
But even AB rook d8, d5, like, no?
Yeah,
This
e5,
bishop starting to-
e5, e5 or what?
I miss 85.
Ah,
to be
okay, no,
perfectly honest.
There is bishop h3, but it kind of it
looks.
looks kind of way too fancy to be true. Because even like let's say queen d6, I think kind of solves the one threat this move creates.
Karyakin's also sensing the moment, and yeah, he goes d5. What does he want after ed?
I'm not sure. Maybe
just queen. Nah.
queen takes b3, bishop c4 is not really that attractive. I was looking at queen h5, but d4 just closes everything. He does go queen takes b3.
Bishop c4, queen c3 is not so clear.
No, I think he just wanted to make sure he gets d5, d5 first before taking with the queen. He wanted to take with the queen on b3, and at that position, black would have just played knight takes d4, which is a lot better structurally for black than what he is getting here. But yeah, I like a4.
If takes,
Bishop f1, I think, might be the idea.
he did take.
Okay, or bishop d3, but I think bishop f1 is the idea. And that's what happened. And if queen b3 back, we can take on g2 and go knight a5, knight c4, which is why Sergei played queen g1. But now we take on g2 and we play g4. Knight a5 is still a move, but I like closing down the bishop as early as possible. He goes knight a5. It's very ambitious.
Looks nice though. Knight c4
No,
is
I mentioned this as an idea, but I wasn't sure if it was fast enough. But Magnus feels confident that rook c1 though.
Counter pin.
He went rook c3. That was an interesting tactical thing because like rook takes c4, rook takes c7 was the point. That's a beautiful geometrical idea, but I think after d4, Sergei might be in trouble. I played d5. I didn't see e5. Knight c4 is still a move even here. I like the geometry of it. You don't need to not play queen d5 check first, but I like the geometrical, and Magnus seems to agree. Queen b3, b5, and then once again white will need to do something about
Queen b3.
yeah, lots of those geometrical things going on, because now knight b2, bishop queen b3 check was very strong.
But Magnus has centralized perfectly.
Yeah, this is now very bad for black. Yeah, rook e6, h6. Yeah, it looks like black probably is just completely winning after rook e6. Although we both missed queen f3, I assume. I know I did. But takes d3 probably wins a piece, or some approximation of winning a piece.
d3.
Yeah. Very nicely played by Magnus.
Very nice game.
Yeah, very nicely played by Magnus. I'm very impressed by his play from a certain point.
Rook f3. Okay. Nothing.
Yeah, this game is over.
Very nice.
This game
Yeah,
is
he's
over.
just insanely strong. Understanding these positions, what has to be done.
Yeah, and I really like d takes c4 on move 16, sort of understanding that you cannot just continue making nothing moves. Just something like this, which many people would have opted for, gives white enough time to stabilize, I assume. Although even here, dealing with the threat,
queen takes. I don't know.
maybe queen takes is decent, yeah, followed by rook e1, just killing off the d takes c4 idea because of the pin. Yeah, it is extremely easy to drift into a position you will not like at all. But yeah, Magnus didn't allow that, and I have a feeling that objectively his position after gc4 is probably not that great.
No, it feels very dangerous against the bishops.
But yeah, he worked out all the intricacies of it. And yeah, a moment ago it looked like Lev was completely lost, and now he's completely winning.
Checkmate.
Very nice epaulette construction here. So Lev wins, and I assume goes to +2. Hikaru will probably... Oh, okay, I don't know. This looks winning for black now. I don't know, knight g2, king f3, king g3. Yeah, should be a draw, rook g3, and the pawn on f4 falls, but white should be able to well, white is not really worse, but I mean, in practical terms, in a blitz game, you pick black, but yeah, black will not win this game.
Looks like Kramnik's playing for a win. Rook f3.
Yeah,
Knight
now he definitely is, because he will pick up the first pawn.
Rook f3 kind of wraps it up.
Yeah, that probably is a draw now. Yeah, and the PGN parse error probably signifies the game has finished in a draw.
Game over. Karana lost to Wesley, so let's...
Yeah, there was some opening blitz tournament quirkiness with 3 queen b3 in the opening, which probably is not...
Kramnik did this once.
No, Kramnik did everything once.
That's true. Yeah.
Probably not entirely required, and Fabi ended up with a position he probably did not want to.
My theory is that Fabi's been using all these blitz and rapid tournaments to hone his Benoni skills so that he can play the Benoni credibly against 1d4. Because he is always trying to play some goofy line that leads to some sort of Benoni structure. At least he did that a lot, I think, in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, and MVL won a 1b3 game against Vichy.
Just as we said, MVL is not the type to goof around. He's going to play serious openings. He goes b3, bishop b2. These guys, they play serious chess here, but they don't feel like showing or making it a memory contest. These blitz games.
Yeah. Nobody really wants to play the absolute main lines, and then if you're stuck not remembering what you're supposed to do, you feel extremely stupid. Yeah, this used to be the main line of the 1b3, but then people started doing completely different things with black. And I'm also somewhat...
Don't you go here? This is the only thing I know about this, that this move is supposed to be clever.
Maybe Vichy misremembered, because he did the next move. And yeah, it does seem... I mean, including a6 and bishop e2 doesn't really make much sense in most positions, I think, because otherwise, the bishop actually wants to return to e2 in most of
after
this.
a6 you take. I'm very confused. Anyway, let's not discuss p3 theory. But instead discuss the standings and pairings.
Yeah, that sounds fair. So Anish and
starting from the bottom.
Yeah, Anish and Vlad on -2. Their tournament does not look very promising. Hikaru still on -1. Now joined there by Vichy, who lost to MVL. And the current favorites to have more whites than blacks in this tournament are Magnus and MVL. You have a feeling have booked their 5 whites by this point, barring a complete collapse in the second half of the tournament. Lev is on +1, and there is a group of people on 50% with all to play for.
So these 3 currently look like they're in a fight for one of the games, but still, you never know.
Well, things, of course, could still change, but yeah, this is what it looks like.
If you were a betting man, which I know you're not, who would you say who books the 5 white games?
I would like to have a brief look at the remaining pairings, but yeah.
Ugh, too complicated. Brief look.
No, come on, that's not fair.
What do you mean? I'm putting up the pairings here.
No, that's not what I wanted. How do you do this?
This is gonna be a mess.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that would be too difficult. So I'd say the top 3, and of the people tied for 4th to 6th right now, I'll pick Karyakin and Fabi, based on nothing whatsoever. Well, Karyakin is the world champion, so I'm basing it on that, but it's an extremely short race now with only 4 rounds left, and I think who they still have to play is very, very important. But Karyakin has already sort of, he got the unpleasant game against Magnus out of the way, whereas both Fabi and Wesley, I think, are still to play Magnus.
Then again, Magnus, once he has 5 out of whatever, 6, 7, you could... Knowing him, he probably won't take off his foot off the gas.
I don't think he ever cruises.
No, that's true.
Especially, like, there's really no reason. He's not going to get horribly tired by playing 9 blitz games. And from what I could tell, he kind of likes playing blitz. So
there's no NBA finals tonight. He doesn't have anything to do. Champions League is over as well. Might as well focus on 2 more games. And I think we have to focus on Carlson, MVL.
Yeah, there's
two
an
co-leaders.
there's an obvious game for round 6 between the top two.
There's Wesley again. After every round, he gets something now. Snacks.
Yeah, that looked like a snack. People are returning, but not. I'm not sure if that signifies that the round will start very soon. It's somewhat irregular because there were some rounds where we had to wait for what seemed like a very long time, and some rounds we started very promptly. So
Yeah, in general, this seems to be well run because there's always teething problems, as anybody who's ever watched any of our shows certainly knows, like with setting up the internet transmission and getting everybody in their place. It started very much on time, and there haven't been any long breaks.
No, I think
kudos to Altibox.
yeah, I think by this point, this tournament does run like fairly reliable clockwork. They've been doing this for a while. They know what to expect.
And we're not there this year to mess things up.
Yeah,
We're far away, Hamburg.
That's true. And I mean, the one big question we have, and I don't know if someone maybe in chat could inform us if you have this information, is whether there's a break now. That is the one thing we were discussing before the whole thing even started.
Nah, but dudes be sitting. Also 9 rounds, you don't take breaks.
But they did last year.
But I'm sure many people yelled at them for doing so. They must have learned their lesson.
No, I don't think people yell at them.
That's true. Norwegians are very polite. Not much yelling going on there.
Yeah.
Ambitious Pawn says, I love Wesley, but he's the worst dressed player ever. Normally I agree with Ambitious Pawn, but I have to disagree on that one. And if you think Wesley is the worst dress ever, you haven't been at many chess tournaments, first of all. Secondly, what bothers you? He was wearing a jacket and some t-shirt, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably not true in general, and also I don't know what prompted it watching this broadcast, because yeah, they all seem to have showed up for a Blitz tournament dressed formally and
too formally, because normally people want to be comfy in Blitz. I don't know if there's some dress code even for the Blitz that you have to wear a jacket or whatnot. But normally you see people wearing polos and t-shirts and whatever they're most comfortable with.
yeah.
Sleeveless basketball jerseys, like it's a mess.
Yeah, people are saying there are no Blitz, but yeah, we kind of figured it out because people are sitting down for round 6.
We smart like that.
Yeah.
Nah, we don't want that. Even though this is a big round, we have like a lot of clashes. We have Vichy Kramnik El Clasico. We have Fabi Naka, another Clasico, or USico at least. Aronia Karyakin, both former World Blitz champions. And Giri So. Sorry, I got nothing for you, Giri So. You're not a Clasico, even though Wesley So, arguably, strongest player in the world right now. I would argue that, but this point has been made many times. Over the last year, no one's put together a better streak than Wesley So. Magnus is playing, this time, not the very soft, but the London, which is, of course, a great opportunity for me to point out that I just published a video series dealing with the London, the Trompovsky, the very soft, all these goofy openings. If you need a repertoire against those from the black side of the board. And a very boring repertoire at that. Check it out.
And yeah, this will. Yeah, I was about to say this will very
transposing?
likely transpose to a Queen's Indian, but then MVL played the double fianchetto again. This is somewhat reminiscent of his game against Hikaru, but the bishop is
out.
Yeah, the bishop is out, so it's different.
The big question is, do you go d5 here? Because I would probably, my instinct would be to go d6, knight b7, and then whatever.
Yeah,
e6, queen e7,
yeah, I
e5
think in
or
this
something.
position you probably go d6, and Maxime agrees.
Mr. Maxime.
Yeah, you play h3 at some point, probably now. I'm somewhat surprised it hasn't happened yet, but yeah, it is on the
Yeah,
board.
knight h5, normally you don't want to worry about it too much. But here you're probably still in time to
Yeah, there's
go
knight.
for
Yeah,
some
there's knight d2,
knight
I guess.
d2.
Knight
Sometimes they play these
knight
goofy
f4,
lines.
yeah. I don't know.
Who knows? Now, yeah, e6 has been played. This is also the most typical setup, e6 intending queen e7, and then followed up with e5 if you need to, or just knight e4. b4, a5, a3.
Well, taking everything off along the a file is not horrible, but it gives white control over the a file as the end result. So MVL understandably opts against that. And knight e4 is a very typical move here because it's a good square for both knights, and trading one off and then aiming the second one once again at the e4 square is sort of the prescribed way of treating this.
Yeah, I don't know. I never know what to do here with white. Take knight d2, bishop f3, but then you get very little. He does take and does go knight d2.
Well, you go back, maybe bishop f3 in some positions, but yeah, it's obviously not going to be a lot. Even taking an e5.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Oh, that's why he goes knight
Yeah,
takes,
I think
queen
that-
takes e5.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the reason why he's taken with a knight, to have the option of just ignoring e5 and going bishop g3. Because otherwise he would have to respond to it. I wonder if MVL is planning to play f5 after bishop g3 or just queen e7 and say, yeah, show me.
Show me the money. White doesn't have a lot to work with. Then again, you could argue a5 did slightly weaken these light squares on the queen side.
But the knight is so far away from them.
No, I was thinking king. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, if we get there. I guess Magnus is wondering if he should play bishop g5, because I don't really see... I mean, yeah, that must only be connected with bishop g5, otherwise it makes no sense.
Knight e5, showing some respect.
Yeah, recognizing that d5, bishop g5 could get awkward, so he is trying to trade off more of those somewhat passive pieces. I like this. I think objectively black is just fine.
I tend to be in favor of exchanging off pieces. Rook c1, but yeah, takes
now,
ab, and
now we
we're
know black
cruising.
is fine, yeah.
Now black is slightly better.
Well,
Also
I think
bishop b2. Pushing it a bit, Mr. Magnus.
that may have been missed. It does require black to leave the long diagonal with the bishop, but yeah, what's the...
Pawn is a pawn.
But he decided...
But Maxi
yeah.
boy.
He probably didn't spot it because he would have gone for it. But yeah, I mean, he is perfectly fine here anyway.
And he also lets the knight live, which I'm surprised by. I thought he'd take and go rook somewhere.
Yeah, but then c5. I think white just starts with the c5 break the minute it becomes available.
But now Magnus will keep the knights on the board and
Probably.
hope for tricks.
Probably. Although, I mean, objectively, knight d4, even c7, c5, black is not really suffering.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
A great deal.
5 CB.
Knight d4 played, and yeah, I mean, if you allow before b5, you do start running some objective positional risks. Even take on e5, plan the knight on c6, start playing sort of around.
Yeah, or even this maneuver, like now I would contemplate.
Yeah. Rook a2, b5, so white does get his preferred structure on the queen side, but black controls utterly the one open file on the board, so I think black is quite comfortable here. Even take with the bishop, I guess, put the queen on f6. Without the a file, it's kind of awkward for white to even try doing something. You probably want to trade at least one pair of rooks if at all possible. But Magnus gets the knight over to d5, which is, I think, a very good maneuver.
Because this knight on c6 sometimes can be a bit of fool's gold, right? It looks nice, but it doesn't really contribute. But
Yeah,
d5,
that's an important transfer. Knight d5, you have to make some awkward moves. Black probably is still not doing that horribly because he has the a file, but
all my money is on Magnus here.
Yeah, I think Magnus definitely won that little bit of a game. The game. Rook b1, I guess, so as not to allow rook a1 at any point. The bishop goes back to g7, f5. It does become concrete at some point, and because black has the a file, he might still hold by creating some counterplay if he doesn't get mated straight away, but that's not a given.
Really doubt it. Yeah.
That's not a given at all that he doesn't get mated in the immediate future here.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Rook f5. Thought you want queen h5, but this, of course, is more direct.
Yeah, rook a1, rook goes back to f1, and yeah, now that one pair of rooks, in particular now that one pair of rooks is gone, white just feels very, very safe because black will never generate enough counterplay on the queen side for white to get worried about that counterplay.
Technically, they're not gone yet.
Yeah, and MVL is trying to create something concrete.
No tricks.
No tricks just yet, although they might appear later. Rook a1, yeah, Magnus is going for technical
Just
option.
queen e2.
Queen e2, I guess, take maybe even with the queen on f1. Queen g4. Yeah, he's sure he will.
Cute.
Yeah, I mean, he knows the king will not get There will never be a perpetual. And yeah, this is quite a horrible endgame for black. All sort of stemming back to the decision you very correctly pointed out. The knights should have been gone. Even if you don't spot knight f3, queen f3, bishop b2.
Just take and any move, rook a4, whatever.
Yeah, it was a weird decision to keep the knights on. It still requires some work to win this, but Magnus is, very, very capable in these positions. Yeah, rook a2. He may have misplayed it a little bit, actually. Because black generated...
No, it takes. Now it gets sharp again.
But yeah, the pawn on b6 is the target here. It's not the c7 pawn. The important one is the next one, which he probably will collect in the immediate future. You go rook b2, I guess. I don't like the rook on g5. I think, he starts creating immediate counterplay. But I think the b pawn is faster. Yeah, I wanted to place it on b2 and then start running with the h pawn. Because here I think you're just not fast enough.
King e2, not king e4, f5.
King d3. Yeah, I guess.
Some point.
King d3, but then the king runs to g4. Maybe I was overly pessimistic about black's chances. Rook g2 now, king f3. So he goes... I don't understand rook g4 check, I think.
Whoa, knight f4? I don't understand anything anymore.
Well, he wants to take the h-pawn. Yeah, this rook endgame is completely winning for white. But yeah, I think at some point they probably played on something like 5 seconds with increment and mistakes crept in. But yeah, this is just resignable. After king e4, I think f5 and f4 was probably the better choice. But
yep.
But yeah, Magnus continues to take positions where you would have to say he has no objective advantage and just transform them into very, very promising positions.
Here I thought it was slightly worse. First of all, maybe you can grab the pawn and then...
But yeah, I think if you do what you suggested, take on b4, take on f3 and go rook a4, white kind of needs to immediately play c5 and rook b4 takes rook d1. You might actually... Maybe this is why MVL decided to avoid these things, but... Yeah, letting the knight leave and then allowing b5. I think maybe an even more important decision, which we kind of remarked on but very briefly, was not playing c5. I think you kind of need to play c5 in these types of positions to not get what he ended up guessing. Levon beat Sergey.
One game still going. Let's chime in or jump in.
Yeah, Hikaru is probably completely winning because there should be a mating attack here. Seemingly not.
He's gone.
Yeah, the game is already over apparently, and either black lost on time or white played king g3 and black resigned because there's mate. Rook h2 is a queen b3, king g4. There are no more checks, and both rook h2 and knight g5 are huge threats. Yeah, people are saying Naka swindled Fabi somewhere in time trouble, but yeah.
Splits, hard to avoid time trouble.
Yeah.
And Drawgangster Anish in the chat is saying, my god, Giri plays like wet paper. So my question is, do you mean my god, comma, Giri plays like wet paper, or do you mean my god, Giri plays like wet paper? No,
I read it. I never assume people make grammar mistakes. So yeah, we have to go with with what it says literally, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider it a grammar mistake not to put the comma there.
Well, on the internets maybe, but in general.
Yeah. But
no, we take it at face value.
All right. This is the chat, but I meant to bring up.
He worships Anish, but Anish does not repay him with kindness in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm not very well read when it comes to gods. We have to watch American Gods.
Yeah, that needs to be done.
And yeah, I don't have any Anish Ganesh material, for example. So has 3.5 out of 6, but Magnus Carlson is far away out in front with 5 out of 6. Already booked the ticket to...
Yeah, and Lev by winning and leapfrogging MVL has also, I think, more or less secured his finish in the top 5. MVL and Wesley are now on +1, and Hikaru by winning this game is actually in clear 5th.
Ahead 50%.
Ahead of all the people who had 50%
Things
just
changed.
now. Yeah.
They all lost?
Yeah, Sergey lost, and also Fabi lost. Yeah, my 2 picks for qualifying for 5 whites actually both lost in game 6. I will commentator's curse. That's a thing.
Is that a thing?
It is most assuredly a thing. Yes.
All right. We need to decide which game we want next round. And to be perfectly frank with you, I don't know. Round 7. We should also point out that after this, don't go home, because probably you are home already, but you can stick around and play a lovely game of chess against Peter Svidler himself, who will do a banter blitz session starting at 9 p.m. our time, which is like half an hour after this is over, I guess. So which game do you want? Carlson, once again, obvious candidate, but maybe we should...
Nakamura is what I would go for with, because I think Magnus has solved all of his, he had a plan for this tournament. This plan is now, we can officially announce it's worked to perfection. I think he might even qualify for 5 whites if he loses his remaining games. So
probably, yeah.
Yeah, the intrigue is somewhat gone in Magnus's performance here. He will most likely finish on top. But there is still very much a fight for the remaining places in the top 5. Something seems to have crashed in our...
Nah, all good, all good.
And also there is definitely an all-American rivalry going on. I think all 3 of those matchups, but in particular, the ones involving Hikaru are interesting to watch.
Wesley, I'm not sure if it's under the radar, but it feels a little bit under the radar. Very strong blitz player without being mentioned so much in these discussions, partly because I don't think he participated in the...
He doesn't play those very
blitz
often.
And rapids, right? But I recall these tournaments they have in the US, like the one with Gary he won, for example, ahead of Hikaru and...
No, but I think it's sort of generally accepted that he is an all-round strong player. And can do all things chess related to a very high standard. But yeah, he's not mentioned in too many conversations when people talk about the the giants of the modern blitz game. Might change. I mean, once he starts playing in as I assume he will at some point. Once he starts playing in official championships, we will probably see him show results expected of him. And people are saying it was a punctuation mistake, not grammar mistake, with the "My God, Giri."
There you go.
And well spotted, well played, Penguin do. And I like this sneak.
Yeah, I don't dislike penguins. Dolphins, I have had my run-ins with over the years, but penguins, I'm okay with. How do you feel about the topic? I think we've had similar discussions in the past.
Yeah, I have a very complicated relationship with penguins.
Right. But you prefer them to dolphins?
No. I know of your objections to dolphins, but
I feel like there's still not enough dolphin awareness out there. But yeah, I hear you. Wesley So Hikaru Nakamura is the game we shall go with. There's also MVL Levan Aronian. Whoever wins this pretty much books the ticket. Whoever loses still has to be a little careful out there.
In particular if Lev wins, because I think if Lev loses he is still somewhat comfortable on +1. But if MVL loses he's back to 50% and will be joined by the peloton there, and yeah, anything can happen from there.
The peloton you said?
Yes.
No, I'm thinking animals. I thought you said he will be joined by the pelican.
No.
There's no penguins or pelicans in this tournament. Let the games begin.
Indeed.
I could probably use my time more wisely.
It will hopefully prevent you from making demonstrably false statements on air.
Ilroy says no one dislikes dolphins. Come on, do we have to have this discussion all the time?
Yeah.
I can't spell, but... really sickens me whenever people say, no, dolphins are so cute and cuddly. not being aware of what they're really up to. And that looks like I'm having issues here typing my wise opinion into the chat. IHateDolphins.com. Check it out. It will open your eyes. Do you have this thing in Russia that when you buy tuna, it says this was caught dolphin friendly?
We're talking about Russia, right?
Yeah.
No. The answer is an emphatic no.
Anyway, we have such a thing in Germany, and I never buy the tuna if it's called dolphin friendly. True story.
Okay. That's not actually the game we're covering. Let's.
But I liked it because it was the Verisov.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he played h4 even. Yeah, it does seem attractive.
This is the Knightage line. But
Yeah,
we promised you guys.
And the other one is a Marshall, where there will be 25 moves of theory. We don't know this theory, but
I know a lot about the Marshall. And so, some people would say, does Levan Aronian. And maxime-vachier graph, I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school here, was part of the Magnus Carlson team for this World Championship match. And even before that, he might have known a thing or two about the Marshall.
yeah, Maxime is the big driving force behind making 12d3.
Trying to make this work from the white side.
Yeah.
Levon has shown his hand here recently against, who was it? Maybe even Kayakin in Vaikanzee or one of these tournaments. Not sure it was against Kayakin. No.
There was also an important game in the Moscow Grand Prix. It was in a different subline of the 12d3, but it also involved MVL. This is still very much theory. There's even a couple of my games, I think, from this position. But in particular, I think this game bears the stamp of Evgeny Tomashevsky, who has been defending this successfully against very strong opposition for years.
But Levon did something very concrete. I think it was against Hari Krishna there. I think
Yeah,
about it in Vaik. Anyway, this is all theory. You could argue about the virtues of h6, rook f8, rook a d8 or rook a e8. A lot of things have been done here, but all of this has been seen before. King g2 as well.
Yeah, takes.
Now you can take with the king or the knight.
Yeah, I think the king is more critical, and this might still be okay. Knight takes. Yeah, I think rook a8, rook ac8 is what you're supposed to play here. But I think this might
is
still
what
be,
he did against.
Yeah, this
Hari,
might still be the game he played against Hari. Bishop e5, bishop
He was
c5.
opting for some very quick bishop e6.
Yeah, bishop e5, bishop c5. I think how it went. Yeah, knight d4, bishop d7, and then white can take on b5, but it doesn't win somehow.
We looked at some nonsense like takes, and knight takes b5. Somehow black was holding his own.
Yep.
Big theory discussion here in the Blitz game. Goes to show this game is important to both of these guys because
Yeah.
if Levan holds, he's cruising. Well, if Maxime wins, he's very much a favorite. And also, weren't we supposed to look at So Nakamura?
Yeah, that's what we told people, and then
I never made it to scroll all the way there. So
okay, that's kind of interesting because that line is supposed to be completely horrible for black, and bishop d7 is.
Is this some old Kasparov-Korchnoi game?
Possibly, but
Korchnoi-Kasparov.
That's weird. Yeah, and they're both also playing extremely fast, so it seems like they're both very familiar with this territory. This is sort of the main line g3 Benoni, and I think the evaluation of this thing changed from. Like e4 bishop d7, yeah. At some point, a5 was supposed to completely refute this, but then they found resources after bishop. What did they play after a5? They somehow still sacrificed some material. I used to look at this, but I don't remember anything these days.
I read the chapter in the Avruch book, which is I think recommending this for white, and I know there was some improvement, but I'm also not up to date.
Yeah. So, without going too much into the history of theory development in this line, this is extremely sharp, and I'm starting to like black here, especially after f5. Gf, you can take with the bishop, go knight d6, rook f8. This I did not expect.
Can you go queen e5, queen f7?
He's still playing extremely fast, so he either just blundered a piece before our eyes, or he knows something about this position.
No, I don't think this can no longer be.
No, I thought what he was doing was kind of clever, because I thought he was taking with the bishop on f6 and then going knight d6, rook f8, and creating a lot of counterplay. No, this looks completely
you
lost.
just resign, no? This bishop goes somewhere.
I guess he'd play knight g3 and hope to muddy the waters somehow, but I don't think he will get very far. Yeah, that's a weird miss by Hikaru. He doesn't normally make mistakes. You know, sort of short, precise calculation is one of his stronger points, and that didn't seem like a very difficult variation to spot. Unless we're missing something, but I don't think we are. Yeah, I mean, you can take on c3 here and continue playing, but your position is just completely resignable. Bishop g5. It's just a piece.
Piece down.
Yeah, it's just a piece. There's never going to be enough compensation here. Rook a3 I quite like as well. Oh.
Bishop.
King h1, even rook af3, bishop h6, just give mate yourself.
I like king h1, yeah, that's clean. Bishop e3.
Because after queen b2 you might now have to go back to c1, but then you will probably come to your senses and play king h1 anyway.
I'll go back to a1.
I'll go back to a1, but I quite like bishop c1, king h1. I think it's solving it by tactical means. Also,
don't do tactics, Wesley. We can't be expected to see any of those on this program. Speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Kramnik, Carlson, please.
Let's go there. I think.
All right, piece is a piece.
Yeah. Although this is a very dry technical endgame, so.
What is so exciting here?
I don't know why people are demanding this game. Yeah,
that makes no sense.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
Well, we'll probably end in a draw.
And MVL against Lev is just. MVL just went for what seems like a clear-cut technical.
This is a dead draw if the rooks disappear.
Yeah, but I guess MVL was happy enough with his tournament situation, so he felt he didn't really need to refute anything.
I think MVL was also slightly curious maybe to see Levon's preparation in this line, even though if he had seen that tournament game, he already knows.
Yeah.
Because it reached this position.
Yeah, I think it even reached some... Yeah, even knight d5, bishop c6, I think we're still following that game, but... There, Hari managed to keep some pieces on the board, and the game kind of continued a bit longer than this one will, but the result was the same.
Okay, draw in this one, Fabiano Caruana against Anand.
Vishy is currently a pawn up, but his king is very unsafe, and once again, in practical terms,
you take white here.
You take white, but after h5, I'm no longer entirely sure. Knight f6, queen f2, queen c3 might be awkward for black though. Or even knight takes... No, knight takes h5 you might regret later on. But queen c3 I quite like. King h6 and then knight e4, maybe on knight d7, e5 might be an idea. But yeah, now black at least has definite counterplay of his own. Knight e5 is still a move, but queen f5 maybe solidifies black's position. Rook f6 is not possible because queen takes e5. Yeah, I like queen f5. It's important to note that h4, knight g4 check would be a mistake here. This is one thing you shouldn't do. Because black generally just really wants to go h4 to create counterplay against the white king. Vishy did play queen f5, takes, queen c7. The king on h6 is still not entirely safe, but now you can finally play h4. And yeah, Vishy now has a technical endgame which he is very likely to win.
How do you do rook e6, rook c6? Oh no, he goes rook e3.
Yeah, rook a3.
And it's smart.
Yeah, and no stalemates.
Okay, just game over.
Well, there are some stalemates, but he will just give up the king side so as not to run into some.
And this technique, why rook a4?
Because rook a5 b5, he wants to lure the king to the fifth and then go rook a5 b5. That was the point, I think, the previous one.
But when I was a kid, I was shown this technique to go a5, rook a3, b3, a4. Sure. It's quite effective.
Not.
Now he's switching to this plan, which is a decent plan.
It is a very good plan, but he won some time.
Vishy's gonna win it, and the Hikaru game is amazingly still going and not particularly clear.
He might be winning now. How did that happen? He was a piece down.
Was he taking the piece? Endgame still piece down, but mess already.
I don't really understand. I mean, you just go e5 somewhere and create a pass pawn and win.
Even this doesn't look terrible.
Yeah, this is where Hikaru is.
This plan looks... What do I know? But this plan looks a little slow.
Well, he got stuck with this rook on c2, which is doing nothing. But yeah, he will feel very unhappy about potentially losing this game. Well, I say potentially, I mean he is objectively completely lost in the current position. Whether he will actually lose it or not is harder to judge. But you just go c2, rook c8, d3, and
he didn't even check much further.
Well, yeah, even king d2, he is going for
no d2.
Yeah, full greed, no rook against queen, just queen the d pawn and win.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise win.
Yeah, this is very harsh, and also apparently Karyakin flagged Giri in a very bad position. That's what chat is saying to us.
Poor Anish.
Yeah, this. Well, I wouldn't say it's a completely lost position, but maybe queen e3, queen h7, queen g6. I'm not sure, but black probably is in control here, and forgetting about the clock in this position is unfortunate.
Yeah, calculating. Where does that leave us with the standings? Is this thingy frozen or can I access it? I think it's quite frozen. And not in a Anna Elsa kind of way. Nah. It's gone. So we don't know the standings anymore. Unless you kept track in your mind.
No. But I might try and bring it up via different means.
Do you have different means? Like mobile telephones?
Yes, we have ways.
Do you think it's weird that the Germans are the only people that call their mobile or cell phones handies?
Yeah,
it's not a German word.
Yeah, I always found it somewhat bizarre.
I grew up in the belief that this is the English word for it. It's a handy. But it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah, seemingly even on a mobile client, the standings are stuck. Something happened to them.
Standings trouble?
Yes.
Then we shall be stuck as well. Motionless, staring at the screen.
They were fine a round ago. I really don't understand how this happened.
Well,
we know Magnus is leading. Magnus was on 5 out of 6. He is now on 5.5 out of 7. Lev was in clear second. He still is in clear second, I guess. MVL is on +1, half a point behind Lev. MVL was sharing with Wesley.
I don't know anything.
Wesley lost and Hikaru won, so Hikaru now is favored to qualify, if we call it qualify. And so this is 4 people who I think are now heavily favored to qualify, and who the 5th will be is unclear.
But we will find out soon. How many games are left? That
2.
math we should be able to do.
There are 2 games left. Magnus is still to play Wesley, and Anish. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And Anish is pretty much out of the running.
Yeah, Anish is doing horribly by now. I think he started well enough, but then he had a run of unpleasant results. And yeah, we finally have standings. Magnus 5.5 out of 7, Lev 4.5.
Oops.
Hikaru and MVL on 4 out of 7, and in
Here we go, sorry.
some version of Clover. And then Karyakin and Wesley tied for 5th with 3.5 out of 7. I assume they're the only 2 people in 50%, right? Because we need to have some people in minus.
Kramnik made a bit of a comeback, 3 out of 7.
Well, if he wins the remaining 2,
with 2 out of 2, they're very much in
position. Can you just briefly bring out who he's playing? Lev with black, and who is he playing in round 9?
Who, Kramnik?
Yeah. And white against Sergei. Yeah, that's not the easiest pairings in the world. Not that in this tournament there are very easy pairings, to be honest.
Mr. Vichy has Wesley and Hikaru. Also not the easiest in the world.
Yeah.
Who has the easiest pairings? It's so hard to say. There's no weak spots in this.
Yeah, there's
maybe some guys that really can't make it anymore, like Anish and Fabiano, are probably nicer pairings to have now.
Yeah, I mean because they're resigned to playing more blacks than whites, and they probably don't care.
Really care anymore.
They don't really care all that much. Vichy and Vlad still have theoretical chances if one of the people above them has a bad finish to the event.
So which game would you like to see in the next round?
You are blocking the list for me.
Apologies.
In terms of tournament intrigue, Karyakin MVL. Carlson,
All right.
Carlson Corona though is just a generally interesting game, but there's really not a lot riding on it.
Carlson's in, Corona's out, pretty much, no matter what happens. So let's start with Karyakin MVL, and then work our way towards the other pairings. Should we need to? Is anybody sitting? These are all different boards, so it probably means that no one's sitting yet. This would be an odd time to take a break. 2 games to go, let's have dinner.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's happening.
Neither do I. Can I do more stuff? Speaking of dinner, did you eat?
Yeah, I've had a very nice lunch/dinner with my school friend. We did all the things middle-aged Russians do when they meet very far away from their homeland.
What is it that middle-aged Russians do when they meet?
Compare our respective ailments, talk about our troubles and strife.
So it's not like you each take a picture out, my wife, my car, my house.
No, not exactly like that.
More
No.
like,
In particular because
my back hurts.
Yeah, I think you start with that and you proceed from there.
Gotcha. Another question. What's the definition of middle age? Because with life expectancy growing, probably middle age gets pushed back a little, right?
Yeah, I've seen some very optimistic articles on the subject. I think I've seen at least one source which said middle age doesn't start until you're 45. So I'm still a young
That's what I was thinking. So you're not middle aged yet.
Yeah, I'm still a young'un, but I don't think anybody would agree with me being a young'un.
Yeah, that I agree with. But there must be something between young and middle age, right? It's like there's a lot of stuff between Mordor and Middle Earth.
No. Mordor is in Middle Earth.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that would make no sense whatsoever. Yeah.
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
Shame on you.
Yeah. Should have said the Shire, but I needed the middle something. Anyway, yeah, you're not a spring chicken, but you're not... Because you've had the earring for a while. This is not a midlife crisis thing.
No. It was definitely a crisis of sorts when I decided to have the earring, but...
We all agree. But no, I didn't mean to. An earring discussion.
But yeah, by now I'd feel a lot stranger without it than I do with it.
All right, where do we go from here?
Hopefully to chess games, but...
Shall we have... No, normally people get upset when I point out stuff like Vichy is twice the age of his opponent. They always say, how dare you insult Vichy? When I was like, why would I want to insult Vichy?
No, we're not in the Vichy insulting business.
Not at all.
Although people still somehow manage to assume that sometimes. Okay, more London. What
It's
joy.
a very Londony day. But Maxime goes to b6 all the time, so I can't really pluck all my grab material against after d5.
Yeah, Maxime is a firm believer seemingly in the double fianchetto against anything.
Well, it's also a good blitz opening. It's not that theoretical, and you get your pieces out and play a game, which seems like the approach. But we've seen this very position in his game against Magnus, no? d6.
Yeah, that's exactly what he had against Magnus. But now he goes
Magnus
d5.
moved the bishop first, and then it was d6, and then h3, I believe.
Yeah, but now he goes d5, which is interesting.
Especially against h3, that makes sense.
I mean, he did lose that game, but it wasn't because of the opening. So I'm not sure why he's suddenly swapping. And
what I'm saying is Magnus didn't play h3. He went bishop e2.
h3, d5, queen b3. What is going on?
Karyakin has preparation in this line. Can you take everything and then do something Grunfeldy, like takes, c5, dc, knight d7, whatever?
I'm looking at the immediate c5, dc, knight d7, but I'm not sure it's correct, and Sergey goes for. I mean, MVL goes for something more responsible with e7, e6 here.
Just one thing to clarify with the chat. I did not declare be nice to Pramo Day today. Just so we're clear.
I have no idea what Sergey is doing here.
No, black looks slightly better, no?
Well, takes bishop c4.
takes.
I mean, I don't think.
Bishop c4. No.
Yeah. I guess that's the point, but I'm still not entirely sure why this is so great for white. But maybe it's just fine. If the pawn was still on b7, you'd just take on f3, play like c6, and I mean, if you were in time to not lose the b7 pawn. But with the pawn on b6, you don't really want to take on f3, I think, because the positional threat of this bishop landing on a6 and your queenside being under constant pressure is annoying. Although maybe takes
considered knight c6, knight f5.
I don't know, maybe takes and the immediate knight d7 followed by c5 might be fast enough. But if you kind of need to be extremely fast immediately, because otherwise you will get into trouble against those bishops.
You have to sacrifice an exchange. Takes knight d7, bishop b5, c5, bishop c6. That's probably good for you. Bishop b7, whatever, ct.
Yeah, maybe. He does take on f3, and yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, knight goes to d7, not to c6. I thought that was maybe the likelier route. You can go with rook d1 here, for instance, to stop, at least for the time being, probably stop both e5 and c5.
And then queen e7 you want to take?
Queen e7 I might actually take, although yeah, after knight c5 black probably has enough compensation for a draw. But something needs to be done about those pawn breaks.
Pramo is confused by the word fianchetto, which is Italian for ice cream, but in chess we use it for... that's a lie. I tend to lie a lot to Pramo. In chess we use it for putting a bishop in this little pocket in front of your castle king on g7 or b7.
I'm sure Pramo knows that. He was asking for literal meaning of the Italian word, and I used to know, but I no longer remember somehow. It's weird.
Yeah.
It was explained to me at some point what the word means. And yeah, Sergey just castles, allowing both c5 and d5.
True believer in the bishops. d5 or
yeah, of course d5. Yeah. I mean, I'll be stunned if... But again, I mean, it does lock out your other bishop, potentially.
e5, no?
Yeah, but I still would go d5 here. Just don't like d takes c5. So it's too bland. Unless he figures he really needs not to lose this game, and that is more important than trying to win it, and then he might go for a drier position with dc5. But I think objectively you need to go d5.
David Cortese, which sounds half Italian. Davide Cortese says, in Italian, fianco means flank. So fianchetto means flanco? e5 and queen f6 has been played. King
Bishop
g2.
b5. I'm wondering why
the
he
queen going here?
Yeah, the queen probably is going to d6,
yeah.
so that probably means why he explains why he didn't play bishop b5 here.
I would want to go a6 at some point. This bishop
Yeah, at some point it probably should happen. And yeah, the bishop on g3 is very, very awkward, so maybe I should try and backpedal on my assertion that d5 is much stronger than...
And we're closing in on the fianchetto definition. It means small flank. It's true. Chess analyst is a born Italian.
Okay.
Unless he's just a born gioco piano player. Gioco piano, sorry for mispronouncing, means slow play?
Quiet
play?
Quiet, I think.
Pianissimo.
Magnus played a very interesting game. I feel like, I mean, our choice of game was justified, but they're letting us down a little bit.
Let's switch to Magnus. If you let us down, we will jump on the World Champions bandwagon, especially since he's playing the very soft with g4.
Yeah, that's a very drastic approach, and he could have played bishop f5 instead of e6. I guess maybe not to allow this. in round 1 of this tournament. But yeah, in this game, yeah, I'm sure this is not a refutation of, Black's opening, but it did become extremely sharp, extremely fast, and then Magnus, I guess, just outcalculated.
Looks very fun.
Yeah, takes, rook g1, f6, bishop f4. Yeah, it's a complete mess. Who knows what's going on? But then somewhere around here, it still feels completely unclear to me. But Fabi goes for a very concrete continuation.
Brave.
Yeah, probably missing rook d1 followed by.
I'm not sure about.
I'm not sure bishop e7 was required, but he does seem to be completely
What
lost.
if king c8 here? I understand we can repeat moves, but I don't think it's worried about that.
Or maybe just take on b7. But it seems like a better shot than what he's done in the game.
Check 91. It's still dangerous. He lost already.
Yeah,
it seems like. Yeah.
This game is over, and actually the MVL game has livened up considerably. So they stopped letting us down.
So Magnus has what now? 7 out of 8.
I think so. Yeah.
He likes crushing the field. And
he drew the first 2, right, and then won 6 in a row, seemingly.
I do recall that last year I think he had 7.5 out of 8. Then he lost to Anish in the last round.
Yeah, he was not very happy about that. And something very strange happened in that game. We should probably auto-update again, yeah?
Alright. What's happening?
Well, at some point MVL just allowed the c-pawn the d-pawn at that point to queen by doing... Maybe he just missed the d takes c6 as a legal move. That would be my feeling.
Very possible.
But then he found this bishop a1, rook b1 idea, which is fantastic. And,
ooh, countermate.
And in this position he even went...
He had a perpetual? No.
I'm not sure. Maybe he didn't have the perpetual.
What I'm saying is here after.
No, you'll have the e1 square, so once the king gets to e2, it's completely safe.
Now, what the h? And by h, I mean heck. I'm not going to use the word hell on this program. Is going on.
You have to assume white is winning.
You get checkmated somewhere.
Yeah, you will. You will at some
E5
point get checkmated here, I think.
EF? Oh, I like E5.
E5 you probably...
F1,
yeah, you need the e4 square. You need the e4 square, and I think you need to take on f5. I think everything is completely...
Just so your king runs.
Yeah, and the king runs towards d5, and the king on g7 is just a lot less safe than the king on d5 and c6, and wherever it is, it will end up. Yeah, and I like king c6 to sidestep all the checks. And now you can do the luxury version. And now you can start concentrating on giving mate to the opposing king. F5 is good, e4 probably is also quite decent, but yeah, f5. Start pushing. Black needs to play c4, but queen e7 followed by f6 probably is mate. And yeah, now bishop f6. Bishop f6 probably was mate in 3 or something, but f6 probably also wins.
King f7, queen g7,
and queen e7.
Queen e7.
Yeah. So Sergey beats MVL. What does that do for the standings?
Let's ask the standings. Mr. Standings. Anna Magnus says 6.5. We must have missed some. Half feet.
Yeah,
against Levon, he probably drew.
Yeah. He drew some game somewhere. Okay, it's very tense because the 3 people up top are in. Magnus, Lev, and Hikaru. Hikaru had a bit of a spurt and went from -1 to what is currently a very comfortable +2. But MVL, on the other hand, had a bit of a rough period, and he is now back on 50%, tied with Wesley, and I assume that's it, yeah? The rest of the field is in the minus.
Yeah, Kramnik and Vichy in the minus, but with
okay,
the last
so what do we have?
Yeah,
let's have a look at the pairings. What do we have for last round? MVL plays Anish, who is at the very bottom of the standings with white. So MVL will feel... But the thing is, he probably needs to win to be sure. And Wesley is playing Magnus, which is not an easy pairing, as we all know.
Hikaru, by the way, after you wrote him off, now he has 5 out of 8.
Did I write him off?
Yes, he said he's not going to qualify.
I did not say that.
No, probably
not. So those 2 are very likely going to be decisive for the fate of the remaining spot
Which ones are that? Kramnik against Kayakin?
So Carlson and MVL against Giri.
Why not Kramnik Kayakin?
Kramnik Karakin is also important, obviously, because if Kramnik wins, he actually catches up with Karakin and whoever it is that will be on more than 4 points of the MVL and So pair.
So you once again have the not very easy and very responsible task of choosing the correct game to cover in this last round.
I have a feeling, and once again, this is not meant as any kind of disrespect to Wesley, but if his general approach to games against Magnus is can be used as some kind of predictive model, I don't know if that's correct, but he probably will go for something extremely solid and try to. But that doesn't
But
really.
with 50%?
Yeah, but that doesn't really do anything for his tournament situation. If he draws, he probably likely gets overtaken by MVL, who is white against Stanish, who is not having a great tournament, and might get caught up by one or both of Vichy and Kramnik. Okay, this
risky.
actually it actually makes the game between Wesley and Magnus interesting, because I would like to see what he does in this situation. Does he care about the 5 whites enough to actually go? No, of course he cares, but does he care enough to go for something sharp and unbalanced against Magnus?
No, but he doesn't think that way. He just plays theory. He always plays mainland theory, even in Blitz.
But he's also been known to just take the game off.
But that's normally after the opening. If he gets surprised a little bit in the mainland theory, then he will play it solidly. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, well, I think we stick with that. And if he does go for something extremely solid and draw heavy, we could switch to something else. Because there's actually a great number of games in this round which will have very, very serious relevance on the final standings. Yeah. The Kramnik-Karakin derby, as you mentioned, MVL Giri. Even Nakamura Anand is a game which could potentially make Vichy a contender. I mean, I don't know what the tie breaks are, so I assume it's some sort of Burgos, right? In a round, I mean, a burger, not Burgos.
Sonneborn burger, I
Yeah,
believe.
burger. And I would think Vichy probably doesn't have a greatest burger, but who knows?
He's a vegetarian, so that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, we'll see.
I should make 2 public service announcements. First of all, Banter Blitz with Peter Svidler starts after this program is over, not before, because I think we announced it at 9 p.m. Of course, we shall first end the show, and it might be 9:15, 9:30, however long this takes. Second, today we are not hidden behind a paywall yet, but we will disappear behind that paywall tomorrow for round 1 of the Norway Chess Classic. So if you want to hang out with us tomorrow, and we would of course greatly appreciate it, go premium if you aren't already on chess24.com/whatever. Premium? I don't know how it works. Anyway, you'll find a way, and we would appreciate it. We'll be here. I'll be here all the way. Peter will be with us for the first 6 rounds.
I believe it's the first 6, yeah, because then I have to pack up and go to play in the World Teams in Hante.
Are you the strongest player playing there? Because everybody else is playing in Norway or on this Grand Chess Tour thingy.
I didn't really think of that in those terms, but I might be the highest rated player playing there.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not impossible. It's a bit weird because there's a great deal of people who rate it higher than me right now, but yeah.
By a great deal, you mean like 14 people in the world, right?
13,
yeah. I meant no offense.
That is a great deal of people. But yeah, the schedule being what it is, everybody is busy playing this tournament, and also there is both Paris and Leuven rapid tournaments clashing to a degree with the world teams, which could lead to interesting team selections even for us. I mean, a number of teams just decided to send what amounts to second string teams because so many of the top players are busy. Russia is not doing exactly that, but we might have some people decamping for rapid and blitz events midway through.
Yeah, so here at Team Chess 24, we're of course sad to have you, but we're also happy to have you around for the first 6 rounds. And I'm expecting a lot of fun tournament. I think I've overcome a lot of fun tournament. I haven't overcome my inability to speak English, but my dislike of chess. Like, I'm ready to look at chess games again.
That's joyful news.
Yeah.
And there was much rejoicing, as they say.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's Pramod saying? Pramod saying, I may miss your opening tips. I will be there online for your Rook Endings class, where Kramnik will play for 8 hours. Normally I would say this is probably out of context, but since it's Pramod, I think this is exactly what he wanted to say. I just can't decipher it.
Also, I think even with that time control, playing for 8 hours is difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
He might be saying that he has stuff to do during the first 3-4 hours, but then he will chime in. I don't know. Really? Last round. There's a discussion. Who will substitute Peter? Another Peter. It's unclear. I might be all by myself.
Why are we on this?
Which one do we want? Not MVL Giri, probably.
Yeah, I think sticking with Wesley is... That's an interesting move order, because that is supposed to be completely wrong. Because of d5, I thought.
No. d5 is nothing.
Really?
Isn't this a game Kramnik Svidler?
No.
Sure?
Absolutely, yeah. He played e3, bishop d3 and things.
No, but d5 is not supposed to be anything.
If you say so. Yeah, maybe knight f6, d5 or something, yeah.
Yeah, that's different. Oh no.
So this is
he went for some very early bishop f4, which has been done, but it's never been considered to be the most critical. It is, however, very solid, as you pointed out.
Yeah, not unsurprisingly, Wesley goes for a really, really rock-solid position. Yeah, and this queen b3 followed by queen a3 whenever the queen appears on e7 is a well-known motif in these types of structures. It looks weird when you see it for the first time, but it actually isn't. Because you need as many open files as possible to play potentially against the black queen side in the end.
I'm not fine here? Okay, you don't have to do it instantly, of course.
b6, no, we need to go to the game, because what happened, it might be a
blunder.
blunder.
Did Magnus fall for a trick?
Yeah, I think this may have been a... Whoa, knight b8.
Not what you
and
want.
it may have been a forced move, because queen e7, knight e6, or maybe even in the immediate cd5. Yeah, I thought it was knight e6, but cd5 kind of wins.
That's one.
But knight e6 is also very strong. Knight e6, queen e6, cd5, I thought was also very, very critical. Knight g5, knight b8, and Wesley castles long. So, I mean, it's
He's
very...
not playing it safe, at least.
Well, you could argue the king is actually safer on the queen side in this position than it is on the king side. So, but yeah, I mean, he is actually actively trying to get somewhere in this game, which is gratifying to see. Rook c1. He might still have to, despite black losing a ton of time with the knight d7 followed by knight b8. He might still have to do it the slow way, so to speak. He's not breaking through anytime soon, but obviously white is significantly better here. Because you really don't want the knight on b8, and once you play knight d7, once again the same tactics become unpleasant. And also queen a3 is just a very, very unpleasant move there, I think. Because you take, and then once again the pawn on e6 is extremely awkward to protect.
No, the problem is that h6 is not a move you really want.
And you create a weakness on g6, and you also are driving the knight towards squares it wants to occupy anyway. He does play h6 because I guess it's just the list of evils available to him. Knight e7, what do you even recapture with here?
Well, ed knight h4 maybe, so it's cd to do.
Knight b5.
Yep, Magnus in trouble out of the opening. Knight b5, knight e4, like all of a sudden.
Yeah, might not be.
We jump.
Knight e5 snapped off by Magnus. You take with d, I think. Although, I mean, you thought to take towards the center, but I wanted to open the d4 square for the knight. Maybe that was too slow. This actually no longer looks horrible for black at all.
No.
Which shows just how resilient the stone wall is.
And the Carlson.
Yes. Bishop a6, I'm taking...
Black is fine.
Yeah, black is probably already, if anything, slightly better. Something has gone badly wrong in between. Yeah, somewhere
around here. It still look nice. Maybe h4, no, but knight f3 can be bad. Anyway, let's stick with it for now. Bishop f1.
Bishop f1 is an important move because you didn't really have the option of letting that bishop run rampant. Rook fc1. White might still be okay. But black will always have enough counterplay on the king side. And I quite like f4 because black probably in some positions wanted to go f5, f4 himself.
Wesley's trying to stabilize, but now it feels like only black can be better, right?
Well, it still is a fight for the c file, but
Rook c4,
yeah, probably.
let's say, then we can take here.
Magnus takes twice, and we'll just, I guess, play something like queen h4. White can go after the e6 pawn, but black will always have... I mean, queen h3 after queen c6 might be a more important resource.
Hang on, queen a3, rook c8? This looks dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know why he gave up on the c file.
Even a pawn doesn't feel relevant.
Yeah, queen c2, if you... Well, more or less anything but this. Although, I mean, you can still take on a7, but...
Queen h2.
a3. And claim that it's all part of the master plan. But I don't like this. I think it's playing with queen e2 is queen e2 rook g1, so which is why he goes
g2.
Queen g2.
It goes to e4.
Yeah, rook e1, queen f2.
Yep, same idea.
You'll have to go to h1, and then your pawns will start falling. Yeah, rook h1 I think is strictly the only move, but after queen e3 you're just in trouble. Queen d7, queen f7. It's still not entirely clear because white also queen e4 is a huge threat. I think this could be just horrible for.
Yeah, you also are a couple pawns or one pawn down. And rook c2. Do you have a perpetual somewhere? Queen
Probably,
e8,
yeah.
rook h6,
Followed by rook
something.
h6 at some point. Yeah, but yeah, queen c4 followed by d4, I guess, is what Magnus wants. MVL has already won against Anish.
Yeah, Anish is out of it.
Yeah, very relevantly towards our original discussion.
It's a bit sad. I'm aware Anish normally doesn't take that much care or doesn't worry that much about his blitz game, but still 1.5 out of 9 doesn't seem like he's in great shape.
Yeah, that's, I mean, nobody wants that. Yes, it's not the end of the world or, you know, maybe not even that relevant, but you just don't like losing.
You don't like losing six chess games.
Losing chess games is just not fun. Yeah, queen e6, queen f1 is an important little bit of tactic. I don't know if you can call it tactic. Yeah, I think black is just winning.
Just over.
Yeah, queen c1, queen c4, and then start pushing. But with MVL winning, the intrigue is just gone because Wesley is not winning this position, and the draw will not be enough for him to finish fifth.
So
and
who
also,
will finish fifth?
Kramnik
won.
MVL, but that doesn't. Why has he? It makes no sense. Has Kraken lost on time or something? This seems like a completely playable position with equal material.
I can't count, but yeah, you wouldn't resign here.
No, yeah, white could very possibly be much better, but it's just not a position in which even I would resign. So,
Wow.
yeah,
You are the benchmark for
shots fired at myself.
masterful.
Yeah.
The more I look at it, though, the less I like the position.
But still, why? Well,
Which move do you play?
Queen g6.
Okay.
Oh, game no, knight a5, queen b3, but I have queen f7. Yeah, game continues.
Yep, agreed. Maybe lost some time.
Yeah, that would be a weird position to lose on time. And Hikaru drew with Vichy,
Hikaru's through.
and
Levon
seemingly
is through, I guess.
Levon showed some more prep in his final round game against Fabi. Because that looks like some kind of a forced draw. Yeah.
Oh, they're still discussing this nonsense. This is their tournament game in Baden-Baden. Can we have a look at the standings? Oops, this is the chat again. I keep doing that. But we can also look at the standings.
I was actually wrong, yeah, because
Well,
MVL is 4th. I thought MVL was 5th. MVL is actually 4th. And there's a tie for 5th between the two Russians because Vladi has beaten Karekin in their direct encounter. If that is the tie-break, then we know that Vladi actually gets in. And this is what we are currently getting on our screen. But I don't know if we can rely on this particular cross table. It might.
No, not really. Just
yeah.
To give
So one of the Russians gets in, and if it's Kramnik, that will be actually very impressive because him we kind of did write off.
That's true. He started with what, -2?
Yeah, he started with -2 and didn't really seem like he was, doing particularly well or even particularly interested, to be honest. But yeah, he just crushed the second half of the tournament. And if it's direct encounter, which I think in general in a single round robin tournament, double round robin tournament is maybe slightly different, but in a single round robin, I think direct encounter should be above Zonneborg Burger.
I never understood the point of this Zonneborn burger in the first place in a round robin, but yeah, hard to have a perfect system for determining those.
Logic would say that Kramnik probably ends on 5th and gets the 5 whites and Karekin just misses out, which is, he just needed the draw in the final round.
So to make this clear, traditionally you have 10 participants and 9 rounds in these tournaments, and if it's 9 rounds, it means you get 5 white games and 4 black games to determine who gets 5 whites and 4 blacks. Well, I have issues with it because I think it favors the strong players, but people think this is a better way to determine it than whatever, drawing of lots. And also a fun warm-up for the players and the audience and the commentators. So we get to see these top players enjoy a nice little Blitz event. The first 5 finishers here will get 5 whites and 4 blacks, and the bottom 5 the other way around. Have you ever played one of these qualifiers for colors?
More than once, yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many times, but definitely more than once, yeah.
Are you good at those? Do you get your whites?
I sometimes do, not every time. I sometimes, yeah. I think I finished in the top half in the Tal Memorial last year, I believe. I haven't done excellently well, but I think I've done just enough to finish in the top half. And yeah, well, I mean, I'm still half decent at Blitz.
I wasn't implying that. I was just curious about your experiences. So we will move on under the assumption that Vladimir Kramnik gets the extra white. If we're wrong about this, we will find out very shortly when the pairings for Norway Chess are actually published. And I believe that is almost it for today, isn't it?
Yeah, that probably should be it for today. And if we want to, if I'm to be alive for tomorrow, I probably should start the promised banter as soon as possible because I'm already kind of past the point of feeling I'm in control of what I'm saying.
I never made it to that point in the first place, but it has been a great pleasure watching this Blitz with you guys. If you want, come back tomorrow, 4 p.m. for the first round with Super Grandmaster number 14 in the world. 15, 14? I can't remember. Peter Svidler, and number 107,000 in the world, Jan Gustafsson. We'll have fun. I hope you guys are here. I'm aware it's a premium Chess24 show, so if you're not a premium member already, what are you doing? You can watch my new video series if you're premium, all of Peter's old series, and you can crush him now in a Banter Blitz, where you can challenge him, and look at the guy, he's a mess. That was my expert plug as usual. See you guys tomorrow. It's been fun. Bye.